Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. Marvel, start to compete with Tony for property. Chapter 61 You Can Call Me the God of Space. Lewis stepped into a small southern town in New Mexico. In the scope of the power of space, the most active one is the Mjolnir. Lewis could almost feel the divine power of Thor, which was comparable to the power of space, and it really was a good thing. The figures of Hawkeye and Phil Coulson are also within the range of Lewis' perception. It seems that this time, Fury has paid for it. The few available agents and agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. were all dispatched here. In the temporary research base, countless researchers come and go, busy. They are analyzing and studying the inscriptions on Mjolnir, as well as textures. But nothing. This is the treasure of Asgard, a combination of divine power and divine gold. How can it be that the current research machines of human beings can explore the essence? Lewis looked around and finally found his target. In the night, Thor looked around blankly. It looked like a deserted country. A man and a woman are looking at him with eyes like looking at a fool. You, which kingdom is this? Elfheim? Nornheim? Thor desperately wants to know where he is now. He has lost his divine power and is now very weak. New Mexico. Jane Foster felt that her day-to-day was really bad, and she originally wanted to take advantage of the night to inquire about the falling objects in this small town. Did not expect to meet a fool. Elfheim? Nornheim? What are these places? Jane Foster aimed a stun gun at Thor. To deal with the lunatic, it would be better to let him sleep. You, how dare you threaten me with such a weak weapon, Thor? Thor said angrily. Snapped. Jane Foster flipped the switch. Sizzle. The strong anesthesia electric current flows through Thor's body, paralyzing every place he passes by. Lewis was in the dark, laughing like crazy. As a joke, Thor was paralyzed by the electric current of the stun gun. Jane Foster let out a long sigh of relief. Da-da-da. The footsteps coming from behind made Jane Foster nervous again. Jane Foster subconsciously pressed the button of the stun gun backwards. Lewis lightly used the power of space to transfer the electric current to Thor's body again. Sizzle. Thor's body trembled for a while, and he continued to be in a coma. It's not good to use such a dangerous weapon when we first meet. Lewis smiled. The power of space imprisoned Jane Foster and her colleagues. Snapped. Louis snapped his fingers. When Jane Foster came back to her senses, she realized that her stun gun had appeared in the hands of the man in front of her at some point. Cynical face, always with a lazy smile. Manufactured by Stark Industries? My family has built such gadgets. Lewis shook his head. He didn't know much about Stark Industries projects. Who are you? Why are you here? Lewis asked back. Could it be that you want to enter that temporary research base to find something? Seemingly being targeted, Jane Foster didn't speak, but just snorted coldly. I'll take them away, I wish you good luck. Looking at Thor, who fainted, this saved Lewis the trouble. Lewis also wanted to see what kind of creature the so-called god was. That's not okay, who knows if you know this guy? Jane Foster immediately rushed over to block Thor. Although Thor is a fool, the threat from Lewis is not low at all. God knows if these two know each other. After all, he was the one who was stunned to the end. Jane Foster felt that she had to be responsible. Stop anyone from taking him, at least until he wakes up. Lewis looked at Jane Foster, showed a strange smile, and said softly, This lady, I want to take him away, and no one can stop him. You can definitely try it. Lewis said with great interest, throwing the stun gun in his hand to Jane Foster. Jane Foster was stimulated by the contempt in Lewis's words, picked up the stun gun and started shooting at Lewis. But this time, Jane Foster saw clearly. All the electric current fired by the stun gun was diverted by the man in front of him with a wave of his hand. Sizzle. Poor Thor was convulsed by the electric shock, it was a bit embarrassing for Thor. "Aren't you and him a partner? Why did you transfer it to him?" Jane Foster couldn't bear to see Thor foaming at the mouth and twitching all over his body. "I never said that I was a partner with him, but I can change someone." Lewis pointed the direction of space transfer at Jane Foster's colleagues. Snapped. Sizzle. A series of dense electric currents, accompanied by the sound of falling to the ground, made Jane Foster's heart tingle. "Eric, what did you do to Eric?" Jane Foster yelled angrily. "I didn't do this, didn't you press the stun gun?" Lewis looked strange. Women are really strange creatures. She was the culprit, but now she is blaming someone else. "Okay, it's time for me to leave, have a nice night." "Who the hell are you?" "Me? You can call me the god of space, Lewis," Lewis said jokingly. Jane Foster thought Lewis was joking, but the next second, the scene where Lewis opened the space barrier and kicked Thor in, caused Jane Foster's brain to shut down instantly. "The man in front of me is really a god." Lewis didn't know what his joke meant to a scientist who believed in science. He extracted a drop of blood from Thor's body and conducted research and observation. However, this is nothing but common blood, and normal human blood has no intention. Oh, sure enough, gods who have lost their divine power are not much different from humans in essence. Lewis sighed. Although he knew the result a long time ago, he was still a little disappointed when he saw the essence of Lewis. He wants to study divine power to prepare for his next set of armor. As a result, the god Thor can no longer be called a god. Just as Lewis was considering whether to throw Thor aside and let him destroy himself, Thor woke up rubbing his head. The sequela of the body being shocked by the electric current is that it still twitches from time to time. "What's wrong with me?" Thor looked confused, and began to recall the fact that he was threatened by a weak woman with a weak weapon. The point is that he was actually stunned, which is simply a great shame. "Hey, mortal, where is this place?" Seeing Lewis, Thor regained the proud tone that a god should have. Lewis raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Thor coldly. For such a proud and arrogant god, it would be better to give him a good beating. Chapter 62, Make Thor no hammer. Seeing that Lewis was silent, Thor asked again, "Stupid mortal, what is this place?" Lewis shook his head slightly. "Such a Thor, let's beat him up." Thor felt the emotion in Louis' eyes. As the most combative god in Asgard, he has that look on his face every time he wants to fight. "Do you want to challenge me?" Thor laughed. "Come on, let the great Thor tell you how to fight." Louis kicked Thor off the bed. Thor, a dexterous carp, rolled over and looked at Lewis warily. "Sneak attack?" In the face of absolute strength, sneak attack is useless. Even a god who has lost his divine power is not something a mortal like you can offend. Thor sneered and assumed a fighting posture, guarding against another attack from Lewis. But Lewis ignored Thor's defense at all. The body passed directly through the space barrier, and appeared behind Thor in the next second. "Kick out." "What should I do when I encounter a proud and conceited god?" "Kick with your feet, kick hard, kick to death." "Hey, it's not fair, the use of divine power is forbidden." Thor stumbled and leaned on the wall. Lewis' kick was merciless, and he came with the idea of beating Thor severely. But after hearing Thor's words, Lewis followed up with a kick and didn't kick it down. Instead, he looked at Thor with a strange expression, and asked, "You call this divine power?" "Not sure, but this kind of power is indeed similar to divine power. All the power in the world is from the same source," Thor said after feeling the power of space displayed by Lewis. "However, for the sake of your divine power, Thor allows you to be my friend." Thor once showed the pride of being a god. Boom! Lewis stepped up his kick. "This god, why is he such a talker?" "Ahem, phew." Thor crawled out from a pile of dust, almost fainted by Lewis' kick just now. However, despite the loss of divine power, Thor's constitution is still very powerful. My friend, your welcome is not a friendly one. Perhaps because of the space power shown by Lewis, Thor feels pretty good about Lewis. The most important thing is that Thor didn't feel any malice from Lewis. What is this place? Thor asked. He had never heard of the power Lewis displayed in the other great worlds. This is the human world, as you call it Asgard, this is Midgard. Lewis replied. The anger in my heart has subsided a lot, it is really that Thor's pride is a little brainless and angered Lewis. Midgard? I actually came here. Thor suddenly realized that he appeared here, and Mjolnir presumably fell near here. Friend, do you know where my weapon went? A cute little hammer. Lewis looked at Thor with a strange expression. This Thor's brain may have been in Asgard for a long time. He doesn't understand the world at all, and he's a little silly. Thor, let's make a deal. What deal? Mjolnir can't give it to you. I'm not interested in Mjolnir, I want to say, after you recover your powers, I want to go to Asgard, how about it? Lewis' goal has long been limited to the Earth, and Asgard obviously possesses the power of another divine power system. Lewis has long tried to perform over-the-top jumps when he could use the Tesseract to perform super long-distance jumps. But in the end it was given up because there were no suitable coordinates. Moreover, among the 9 kingdoms connected by the World Tree, the Earth seems to be the one that is isolated. I don't know the specific reason, but Lewis felt that blocking feeling. It can be broken open by force, but what will happen after breaking open, Lewis is not sure. This made Lewis set his target on Thor. Thor was silent, and gave Lewis a meaningful look, without answering. What? Is there a problem? Lewis asked. Asgard doesn't welcome outsiders. I don't want to go back to Asgard and be driven out because of this. Thor is not stupid. Who knows if Lewis has other plans? Midgard is the most powerful country in the 9 kingdoms, God knows if anyone would want to invade Asgard. Thank you for your care, but now I'm going to find my beloved hammer. Thor waved his hand. Lewis felt very mysterious to him. Thor didn't want to get involved with Louis, especially when Louis showed interest in Asgard. Lewis didn't stop him, but just looked at the closed door. Sure enough, even the naive Thor is not so easy to fool. However, it doesn't matter, if you want to go to Asgard, you don't have to take Thor's route. All roads lead to Asgard. Watching Thor leave, Lewis ignored it and passed through the space barrier. Appeared at S.H.I.E.L.D's temporary research base. Mjolnir is here. However, in the dead of night, there is not even a single person here. It seems that even the people of S.H.I.E.L.D are very comfortable with Mjolnir. After all, I have tried truck pulling, crane lifting. Even if you can't pick it up, who will compete with this iron bump? Louis looked at Mjolnir, whose inscription was clearly a magical spell. Mjolnir. Lewis didn't know why, but he could pronounce the name of this Mjolnir. Buzz buzz. Mjolnir rang, as if answering Louis's call. Do you understand? Lewis just obeyed his will and yelled out casually, not expecting Mjolnir to respond to it. Buzz buzz. Mjolnir continued to buzz to communicate with Louis. It's not a hammer that only Thor can handle, it's just a spell cast by Odin. Only those with real strength can pick it up. Louis had never considered Mjolnir, but now he saw how enthusiastic Mjolnir was. I'm sorry if I don't take it myself. Lewis grasped the handle of Mjolnir's hammer, thinking that it would take a lot of strength, but he didn't expect that it would not be too heavy in his hand. Odin, far away in Asgard, felt the spell he had left on Mjolnir. He said in disbelief, how is it possible? Did Thor realize the real power so quickly? For his son, Odin can be said to know very well. In a short period of time, it is impossible to comprehend what I mean. So there must be someone else who picked up Mjolnir, could it be someone from Earth? Odin's heart is full of doubts, but in any case, all this is for Thor to experience it himself. Globe, New Mexico. Lewis, who picked up Mjolnir, only felt the power of thunder sweeping into his body. This is the power of thunder, a kind of Asgard divine power. But this force was firmly kicked out of Louis's body by the space gem. Buzz buzz. Mjolnir trembled, expressing his grievance. Okay, just follow me. Louis doesn't know the meaning of space gem, but as the first space gem to express his affection to Louis, its opinions still need to be referred to. As for Mjolnir, Louis doesn't like to fight with a hammer. A real man should wear a Kamen Rider's holster and finish off his opponent with a night kick. To put it bluntly, Louis really didn't like Mjolnir. This hammer was originally tailor-made for Thor. As for Louis becoming a more suitable candidate than Thor? Treasures, the virtuous live there. In the dark night, Thor, who was looking for the hammer, suddenly felt the top of his head turn green. An unreasonable panic made him a little embarrassed. Is something wrong with Mjolnir? Thor's heart became more and more anxious, and then in the wilderness, he found Jane Foster, who dragged his colleague away. History is always amazing coincidences. When Louis did not interfere too much with Thor's world line, the world line automatically corrected, and Thor still met Jane Foster. You are the woman who threatened me with a weapon. Thor was furious when he saw Jane Foster. He, the majestic future king of Asgard, was knocked unconscious by a small weapon. Are you that lunatic? Jane Foster didn't expect that she would see this lunatic again. Wasn't he taken away by God? Could it be that God despised him for being stupid and let him back? God, please, God, come and take this maniac away. Crazy. Thor's face became more and more ugly. This damn woman. Woman, you pissed me off. Thor gritted his teeth and walked towards Jane Foster. Snapped. In the next second, Thor fell to the ground again, twitching and trembling all over. Jane Foster's stun gun hit Thor accurately again. Was about to cry, I really didn't do it on purpose, please, is there any God to help me? Why did you let me encounter this kind of thing? It's really hard for me. Dragging two big men to walk is really embarrassing for Jane Foster's small arms and legs. The communicator was also unable to use because of the magnetic field changes caused by the arrival of Mjolnir and Thor during this period. Louis observed Thor's situation through the power of space. When seeing Thor being stunned by a stun gun, Louis suddenly thought of a word: electric fish. Electric Thor is simply easier than electric fish. Thor really lives up to the name of Thor. I think it's a good choice for you to join me, Louis said to Mjolnir. Mjolnir, who was suppressed by the Tesseract, hummed back, approving Louis's words. Chapter 63, Thor shocked. As the S.H.I.E.L.D. who has Mjolnir in his pocket. While reassuring that no one can take Mjolnir away, there will still be routine checks every day. Hey, man, how could anyone take that thing away? Who says it's not? This kind of inspection is a waste of human resources. Look, isn't the hammer still there? Yes, still. Where? As routine inspection staff, the two immediately sounded the most advanced alarm. Phil Coulson and Hawkeye felt the scene immediately. Seeing the empty pothole, the faces of both of them became ugly. Hawkeye, as the main garrison in the outer circle, did not find any trace of anyone. Internally, because Mjolnir destroyed the magnetic field, there was no way to install monitoring. Is it under such circumstances that someone actually took Mjolnir? Where should the majesty of S.H.I.E.L.D. be placed? It hasn't been long since Hydra took Tesseract away last time. Now, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been provoked once again. What's going on? Hawkeye looked at Phil Coulson. I'm not sure if it's an insider yet. Phil Coulson said with a cold face, "Don't report this matter to Director Nick Fury for the time being." "What are you going to do next?" Hawkeye asked. As the supreme officer of this temporary research base, Phil Coulson has the highest command authority. "Take a thorough look inside first," and the external monitoring did not find any suspicious persons. Phil Coulson said in a deep voice. "Now the biggest possibility is that insiders commit crimes." "Agent Phil Coulson, have you ever considered the paranormal?" Hawkeye asked suddenly. "It's hard to say, but let's do a thorough internal investigation first." Phil Coulson nodded. He knows that there are supernatural abilities, but he can't attribute everything to supernatural abilities, otherwise the world will be messed up. While swinging the small hammer, Lewis imagined the situation of the temporary station. Mjolnir is engraved with magic runes, and even if it is thrown out, it can be returned to the hand at any time. Lewis throws it away for a while, treating it as a fitness toy. Thor on the other side was also brought back to the hotel by Jane Foster. Thor, who regained his composure, also began to understand everything around him. The plot seems to be developing normally, but because Lewis took Mjolnir. After a thorough internal investigation failed, Phil Coulson began to search for suspicious persons appearing near the town. In the hotel, Jane Foster asked with great interest, "You mean, you're looking for a small hammer?" "Yes, it should have fallen nearby, I need to find it." Thor nodded. "Okay, I'll help, can you describe what it looks like?" Beep. Beep. While the two were communicating, the doorbell of the guest room rang. "Which one?" Jane Foster called. "Hello, this is the corn sausage pizza you ordered." A voice from the door rang. "I didn't order any pizza, Thor, did you order it?" Jane Foster asked suspiciously. "No, I'll go and have a look." Thor walked towards the door, not realizing that the danger was behind the door. Click. Thor opened the door, and at that very moment, a group of S.H.I.E.L.D. squads in black armed body armor rushed in. Thor was firmly suppressed to the ground. "Who are you?" Jane Foster was taken aback. But it was quickly captured. "Let her go, something is coming at me." Thor wants to resist, but he has no capital to resist after losing his divine power. Phil Coulson took the list and compared Thor's face. "Suspected foreign personnel, and no record of entry and exit, take away." Phil Coulson said indifferently. "Do you know who I am?" Thor wrenched away, kicking the S.H.I.E.L.D. team members away. But in the next second, more fists hit Thor's face. Thor passed out magnificently. Phil Coulson nodded in satisfaction, signaling his subordinates to let go of Jane Foster. He said in an apologetic tone, "I'm very sorry, Dr. Jane, this man is involved in a theft case, we need to take him back for investigation." After all, Phil Coulson showed his identity card from the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistic Support Bureau. Jane Foster wanted to say something, but saw Phil Coulson's unquestionable eyes, or the documents, and finally said nothing. When Thor woke up, he was woken up by a basin of cold water. He immediately realized his situation and wanted to break free, but his arms and legs were firmly chained to the chair. "What on earth are you trying to do?" Thor huffed. As Thor of Asgard, when had he been wronged like this? "In the end, I came to the poor place of Midgard. In the past few days, I fainted and recovered. Sorry, sir, we just wanted to ask for some information. Perhaps the means used are a little too much, but I need an explanation for the fact that you are the only one in the whole town who has no entry and exit records. If there are a lot of guys who don't have a freshman record, then Phil Coulson will be a little more lenient because he is worried about picking the wrong guy. But in this situation, it is clear that the man in front of him did it. Are you worthy of my explanation?" Thor still retained his pride as the Prince of Asgard. "Stupid mortals dare to treat themselves like this." "You're welcome." Phil Coulson waved his hand. The subordinates around him immediately pressed the switch, and a series of dense electric currents were connected to Thor's body through the chair. Stupid of who? Thor cursed intermittently, but what was ushered in was nothing more than a more powerful electric current. White smoke came out of Thor's head, and the electric current for such a long time made Phil Coulson more sure that Thor was unusual. Can you tell me your organization and your purpose now, Zhaos? Thor's head was forced up, and Phil Coulson asked indifferently. Thor, he tooey. Phil Coulson's face became even more indifferent, and he said softly, go on. Zzz zzz. Crackling. The sound of electric current was heard endlessly in the interrogation room, and Thor felt that he was about to be electrocuted and delirious. Where are you from? Phil Coulson's voice sounded again. Asgard. Thor replied weakly. Thor, who had been severely beaten, began to learn to endure the pain. Phil Coulson frowned. He hadn't heard of Asgard. Look, where is Asgard? Phil Coulson said. Soon some subordinates said, report sir, Asgard is the place where the mythical Aesir Protoss live. Phil Coulson couldn't help bursting out mommy fuck. How dare this guy play himself? Electricity, continue to electrify me. Chapter 64 As long as you bully Thor, we are friends. Lewis, who observed Thor through the power of space, felt a toothache. Don't look at Phil Coulson as a nice guy, but Phil Coulson can be the best agent in SHIELD. This is not something that a good man can win. Cruelty is also an essential quality for an agent. Lewis was worried about whether he should help. What if Thor becomes the first Thor ever to be electrocuted? This is probably the biggest joke ever in Asgard. The interrogation of Phil Coulson is still going on, but from Thor's mouth, there will always be only words like Asgard and I am a prince. Phil Coulson wrote the sentence suspected to have a mental illness on the interrogation paper. Only then did Thor get a break. However, the heart also buried the hatred for SHIELD. As for counting on Thor to join S.H.I.E.L.D. in the future? Dream. It would be nice not to send an army to attack SHIELD. Thor, who was thrown into the cell, was dying, his divine power was suppressed, and his Protoss constitution was also suppressed. It hurts, it hurts. The most important point is that it is easy to die. For a moment Thor felt like he was going to die. When Lewis was thinking about whether Thor would be grateful for his appearance at this time, a figure 210 suddenly appeared in the sky. Lewis narrowed his eyes slightly, delighted in his heart. After waiting for so long, the Lord finally arrived. The god of trickery, Loki. He is also Thor's younger brother. Loki lightly knocked out several prison guards who were guarding him, and walked to the cell. Foreseeing his big brother Thor became like this. Loki really is, the daughter-in-law laughed out loud. No, no, hold back. Loki puts his smile away and puts on a worried look. Snapped. The prison door was directly destroyed by Loki, and Thor collapsed on the ground, barely raising his head, trying to remember the face of the visitor. Thor never dreamed that Loki would be here. My dear big brother Thor, how did you become like this? Loki pretended to be concerned, but his heart was already full of joy. He was still thinking about who would have done what he hadn't done for so long. It must feel good to beat Thor up. Really want to try it myself. Damn humans, damn S.H.I.E.L.D, they should do this to me. Thor was so angry that he was almost going crazy. He has already firmly remembered the name S.H.I.E.L.D in his heart. After he recovers, the first thing he goes looking for is SHIELD. S.H.I.E.L.D. Loki repeats the name several times. As long as you bully Thor, we're friends. But you almost tried to kill Thor, that's my enemy. Poor S.H.I.E.L.D has no idea what the hell he's messing with. Loki, take me out, take me back to Asgard, I don't want to stay in this backward Midgard at all, Thor begged. He had had enough of the life he was living now, and the Prince of Asgard had never been wronged like this. Loki hesitated, didn't speak, just sighed. What's wrong? Thor asked. Thor, my dear big brother, because you attacked the Frost Titan without authorization, my father was seriously injured trying to save you, and he died not long ago. Now, I am the king of Asgard. Loki wiped away tears that didn't exist, and lied. No, it's impossible. How could the father? Thor held his head, his voice choked up, and he was a little speechless. Don't you still understand? My father planned to crown you king, but your actions made my father furious. In the end, my father was seriously injured and died in order to save you. The throne of Asgard can only be passed to I. Thor, you yourself abandoned the throne of Asgard, and you killed the king. Loki burst into tears, accusing Thor of every wrong move. All the reasons are attributed to Thor's head. This makes, Thor feel even more painful. Lewis came to the door through the space barrier, opened his mouth, and didn't know what to say. He is indeed the god of mischief, and his ability to deceive people is simply top-notch. Thor is afraid that he will be fooled by Loki. In other words, Loki is more suitable for the throne of Asgard than Thor. Definitely, except for the one who is not biological. Thor, my father's last hope is that you can live a good life in Midgard. Loki looked sad, and accompanied Thor in the pain of losing Odin. Finally, Thor couldn't bear the exhaustion, and passed out. The sad look on Loki's face was gone. Stupid big brother, let's stay on Earth forever. Humming a cheerful Asgard ballad, Loki walked out of the prison room in classical dance steps. Boom! The door of the prison behind him closed instantly, and the chains were not broken. Swish! Loki makes a perfect turn and almost cheers. The excited smile on his face stopped abruptly after seeing Lewis. Louis leaned against the wall, watching Loki vent his inner joy. Seeing Loki's expression stiffen, Lewis made a please gesture. You can continue to dance, and we will talk after you finish. Lewis said lightly. Loki's smile was still bright, and he continued to dance, but after turning around, a sudden killing intent broke out. A casual wave of your hand is huge amounts of explosion. Boom! The divine power exploded around Lewis as energy, almost completely destroying the walls of the prison. Revealing the fainted Thor inside. Go out and fight, I don't think you want to hurt Thor. Lewis laughed. Loki never meant to hurt Thor, definitely, mischievous teasing, that couldn't be called hurt. Loki snorted coldly, Thor has lost his divine power now, and Loki is also worried that the aftermath of the battle will affect Thor. He didn't want Thor dead. Loki raised his hand, and a dimensional rift opened in front of him. The huge rocks lined the other end of the rift, which looked like another world. Lewis didn't know that there would be places like this on Earth. Asgard? Lewis asked suspiciously. What? Don't you dare come over. Loki sneered. Why don't you dare? Lewis snorted coldly, it's just Asgard, and he planned to come here. But I didn't expect Loki to be so good. However, Loki's ability to forcibly open the dimensional rift and break through the barriers between Asgard and the Earth made Lewis a little envious. It can be seen that in the original play, Loki does not rely on the power of the space gem to open the door of space, but Loki's own magic also plays a big role in opening the dimensional cracks. Chapter 65 Not as good as a horse? Armed with the space gem, Luigi doesn't have to worry about what Loki might do. Passing through the dimensional rift, Lewis felt that the air here had a different composition ratio than that of the Earth. Before Lewis could think, Loki's attack came again. As a member of the Frost Titan family, Loki was born with a unique grasp of the magic of the ice system. The divine art with extremely cold air almost covered the ground with pure white frost, and began to penetrate into Lewis' body. Ice, Louis sneered. To deal with cold, use fire. The 555 series of Transformers are already in hand. Delta Henshin. The purple flame burned Louis' body, but there was no slight damage. In the purple flames, the silver and black Delta clothes covered Louis' whole body. The purple flames scorched the surrounding cold atmosphere. Like devouring, rushing towards the source of the cold breath. Delta's fire rushed towards Loki like a dragon. This forced Loki to stop the continuous output of freezing magic. Clang! The purple flames converge and return to themselves. Delta armor stood on the ground, and Silver Black's armor exuded a strong desire to attack. When Louis developed and built the Delta, he focused on the powerful offensive ability of the Delta. Loki looked at Delta warily. It should be something similar to Asgard armor. Faced with such armor, Lug did not dare to be careless. The purple flame just now actually made him feel like he was about to be destroyed. If you touch the upper point, I am afraid it will be very difficult to solve. I think we can calm down and have a good chat. Louis doesn't want to fight Loki. If Odin is provoked, Louis is not sure that he can survive in the other existence of level Godfather now. That is a powerful and ancient existence that has lived for 300,000 years. I think so too. Loki laughed too, but he didn't relax his vigilance at all. You remove the divine spell first. You take off your armor first. Two people said at the same time, no one will let the other. How about starting from the day? Then let's go together. I counted to 3 and lifted them together. Good. Luigi and Loki stare at each other, and Luigi starts counting. 3. The extremely cold magic and the purple flame collided together. Both of them retreated in embarrassment. Obviously, in the confrontation just now, no one would let the other go. In the end, no one got any benefit. He, that's boring. Louis sneered. Each to each other. Loki grinned darkly. This was the first time he met someone who was as gloomy as himself, and they all wanted to go together. That being the case, it must not be left alive. As soon as Loki thought of this, his body floated in the air, and huge amounts of divine power surged around him. Countless energies gather together, rub against each other, collide, and explode if you are not careful. But Loki is in control with ease, worthy of being one of the most powerful necromancers in Asgard. Feeling such huge amounts of power, Louis' complexion also became heavy. The mobile phone on the belt was taken out, and Louis pressed the middle button. Phase. Red Black's Phase replaces the Delta, which is the second battle armor Louis is most familiar with. Loki didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. The countless energies gathered to the extreme, and a series of constant explosions began to occur around Louis. Huge amounts of explosions almost resounded through the sky, and the distant Asgard could hear the battle here. Loki can't care about so much. At worst, he will say that he is to kill the invaders who invaded Asgard. Louis waved. One after another the space barriers are constantly dodging these energy explosions. However, he was still attacked by the aftermath. Give up, since you know those secrets, you will die for me. Loki's hands controlled the frost, ready to freeze Louis forever. This is the power of the gods, the ability from the Frost Titans. But Louis' speed is faster, Phase's accelerated form is activated, and the speed reaches the limit in an instant. Startup. With a speed of Mach 50, even Loki is hard to guard against. The rising red airflow wrapped around the body, these are the breaths of Photon's blood evaporating under the load. Silver Black's Phase high-speed movement, the core matrix on the chest is running at high speed, cooperating with Louis's attack. Loki only felt that the space was imprisoned in an instant. Several scarlet drills aimed at him, which made him feel uneasy. 0, asking for flowers. Phase's figure disappeared and reappeared, piercing through the crimson drill bits one by one, and the violently rotating crimson electric drill was accumulating. Piercing Loki's body hard. Crimson electric drill 9 combos. The crimson electric drill scurry around Loki's body with the power of space, and countless explosions sounded in Loki's body. The vibration caused by the explosion almost cut off a layer of the surrounding ground. Even with the body of a frost titan, Loki felt that he was facing the threat of death. "Are you really going to die here?" Just when Loki thought so, a gentle energy injected into Loki's body. The eight-legged Pegasus Perversus stepped forward through the void and landed in midair. The Drawnir gold ring carried on his back exudes a strong infusion of divine power into Loki's body. Healed all damage from the crimson drill. Lewis shook his head disdainfully. From this we can see how eccentric Odin is. It's no wonder that Loki wanted to usurp the throne. Odin went there himself to save Thor, and sent a horse to save Loki. This treatment can be described as worlds apart. Loki, who was recovering from his injuries, glared at Lewis, but did not speak. Since Perversus is here, it naturally represents Odin's will. Lewis didn't touch the armor, just looked at this eight-legged Pegasus, a rare species, and really wanted to raise a page. Sensing the offensive thought in Louis's mind, Perversus snorted and motioned for Lewis to follow him. Since this was an invitation from God King Odin, Lewis had no way to refuse. With his current combat power, it is only possible to defeat this eight-legged Pegasus by turning on the burst mode, let alone when facing Odin. That is a well-known existence in the universe, level Godfather and other powerhouses. Louis didn't touch Faiza's arm, and walked side by side with Loki, following behind Pegasus. "Why don't you ride a horse?" Lewis asked curiously. "You can try." Loki urged Lewis to do it. "Forget it. Lewis is not stupid, just follow behind obediently. I think the status of the two of us is not as good as a horse." Lewis felt a little embarrassed, but it seemed that it was true. Loki was silent and did not speak. In Asgard, Loki is Odin's son in name, but his status is not very high in reality. Chapter 66 Born to be King, for subscription. Although Odin acted as if Loki was his own son, but his own son never got the treatment he deserved. When Thor came of age, he directly declared his succession to the throne. What about Loki? Loki was frantically thinking about these unfair treatments in his mind, almost going crazy, and the breath on his body became unstable. "Hey," Louis bumped Loki. "What are you trying to say?" Loki wasn't used to being touched. "I don't think we have a particularly big hatred." "I won't say those things," Lewis said with a smile. Loki turned his head away, ignoring Lewis. "I also have a big brother. His name is Tony. My father abandoned me when I was young. I only discovered my background later. I was kind of playing tricks on Tony, and I liked bullying him, taking everything from him, not 5 or 6 inches, and it never occurred to me to hurt him." "You too, right?" Lewis laughed. His words pierced the deepest defenses of Loki's heart. Loki also never wanted Thor to die. Everything he did was more like a child's prank. Loki watched Louis's face, blocked by Faiza's armor. But soon, Lewis disarmed the armor. "Do you want to see if I'm lying?" Louis read Loki's thoughts with a glance. "I don't." Loki turned his head arrogantly. But there was a smile in his eyes. In Lewis' eyes, he didn't see the slightest lie. When Lewis heard Loki's arrogant voice, he knew that Loki believed his words. "Come to Asgard. In Asgard, where the gods live. Countless gods of the Aesir pantheon walk here, busy. Looking carefully, it seems that there is no difference between office workers working on the earth. The highest point of Asgard is the huge amounts of throne, made of gorgeous metal, as hard and strong as Mjolnir. The great god King Odin sat there, overlooking everything. He is the god King Odin, king of the gods and one of the rulers of the universe." Lewis saw the changes in the world, the infinite power, and all the nature and beauty in Odin's one eye. Everything in it is what Lewis wants to experience and possess. Mjolnir in Louis seemed to feel that he had returned to his familiar place, and was jumping for joy. Pegasus took Lewis to Asgard and flew out. Odin looked at Louis, and the two were staring at each other. In an instant, both of them got what they wanted to see. Loki looked at Lewis with some surprise. In his impression, few people could meet such Odin's eyes. Even himself, even Thor, dare not face Odin squarely. But Lewis did. "I see." Odin gave Lewis a meaningful look, sighed and said, "You are an existence born to be a king." As soon as these words came out, the whole of Asgard seemed to fall into a brief silence. After a while, the cloud is calm and the wind is light. Loki rubbed his head, feeling like something was missing in his head. What did Wang Shi say just now? Go back as soon as possible, Asgard does not welcome the arrival of humans. Odin regained his dignity and said in a cold voice. In a trance, there was an extremely cold air flow, trying to expel Lewis. Asgard only recognizes one king, only one Odin. Therefore, Odin's words cannot be followed in Asgard. Loki, step back too. Odin issued an order to evict, and Lewis and Loki had to leave Asgard. Father's attitude is a bit strange, but since you have an annoying big brother like me, I'll send you back to Earth. Loki was a little arrogant. Although he doesn't really think of Louis as one of his own yet, there's an annoying big brother thing about Louis that makes Loki warm to him a little. Can I go to other places? Isn't this the kingdom of the 9 gods? Lewis asked curiously. That's not okay, or I'll be punished. Loki shook his head. In Lewis's disappointed eyes, he said again, however, I can take you to see, but only in a few places. The dimensional rift was opened by Loki, and the two disappeared into it. Odin looked at the two people leaving and sighed heavily. When he and Lewis looked at each other, he saw the demeanor that the king should have in Lewis' eyes. Born to be king? No, Lewis is the king. It's just walking the road of becoming a king again. The throne is ready and waiting for Lewis to sit on it. In Lewis' eyes, Odin saw the destruction, and the endless howling. Under the throne, countless people died in battle, both enemies and partners. Hope this universe won't be in turmoil again. Odin let out an old sigh. He has lived for 300,000 years, which is why he is eager to pass the throne to Thor. Huge amounts of volcanoes. Tall mountains. Weird sculpture. There is also a large group of dwarfs with big beards who are no taller than Lewis' chest. Beard mopping the floor, scruffy. The air smelled of fire, metal, and dark ale. This is the kingdom of dwarf. The only good friends with Asgard are the dwarfs of Wardheim. They are really short, but they are very interesting and have a good personality. Thor's hammer is made by them. They never gave me a present, though. As soon as he said this, Loki's eyes darkened. It's so sad for Loki, there is injustice everywhere. Lewis patted Loki on the shoulder, expressing his understanding. The same as Tianya's fall, Lewis suddenly felt that his appearance is not so miserable. Tony is a big brother with emotional intelligence. As for Thor? Not to mention, this is just a fool. If I want to ask dwarfs to help me build armor, what kind of 2.3 price will I have to pay? Lewis asked curiously. He actually has 2 sets of armor that dwarfs need to help build. It's hard to say, it depends on your relationship with this group of dwarfs. What they like most is spirits and crafting. Loki introduced. We don't have much time, I'll take you to see other places. Louis nodded, and followed Loki into the dimensional rift. The space gem has already recorded the coordinates of Wordheim, and Lewis can come back anytime, anywhere. As soon as Lewis stepped out of the dimensional rift, he felt a biting cold. Achoo! Lewis couldn't help shivering. Ha 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 ha, this is Jotunheim, the lair of the Frost Titan, but they were only broken into by the stupid Thor some time ago. We can take a look quietly. Loki showed Lewis the world of ice and snow behind him. Chapter 67 Avengers Alliance Red King. Looking at Loki's expression, Lewis felt that it was better not to say that Loki was the Frost Titan. No matter how you look at it, you will feel that Loki is much worse than himself. Loki is the real thief and father. No matter what kind of plan Odin made, Loki was forced to leave his own group. This is an indisputable fact. Jotunheim is the lair of the Frost Titan, where ice and snow are rampant. The living environment here is very harsh, and Lewis used the space gem to record the coordinates. Besides, there are no other places in the 9 kingdoms of God that you can go to. Midgard, the earth you call, also belongs to one of the 9 kingdoms of God. You should be more familiar with it than me. Loki opens a dimensional rift, and a dimensional rift opens in the wilds of New Mexico. Fortunately, Loki is not opened in the original place. If you come to Midgard, I will also take you to other places. Lewis laughed. Loki didn't respond, closing the dimensional rift after Lewis walked into 05. Looking at the empty Jotunheim, Loki took a deep breath. I don't want to go back to Midgard, leave it to Thor. As for me, I shall be king of Asgard. Loki's ambitions are evident at this moment. The moment he returned to Earth, Lewis found that the town had entered a state of alert. Louis and Loki's first skirmish almost destroys the prison. Such powerful energy made both Hawkeye and Phil Coulson feel that things were not going well. Can only dial Fury's phone. Fury was silent on the other end of the phone for a moment, and there seemed to be other voices in the office. Okay, I see, I will send our new members to help. Fury said coldly. But the anger almost set Fury on fire. First the Tesseract, then the mysterious hammer from beyond. Now, more and more organizations don't take S.H.I.E.L.D. seriously. The ability to take things from a distance like that and avoid searches and surveillance is obviously a special ability. Fury looked at General Ross in front of him, his face softened. Ross, it seems that I need to trouble you. Our members have a little problem in New Mexico. Fury said. General Ross, who can also be called Red King and Red Titan, has officially joined the Avengers. At the same time, because of his military status, his position is second only to Fury, and he is one of the leaders of the Avengers. Don't worry, leave it to me. General Ross nodded. He still retains the right to the military, but that doesn't prevent General Ross from joining the Avengers. As Fury said, Avengers is an existence independent of S.H.I.E.L.D, and naturally independent of the military's jurisdiction. By the way, why isn't Mr. Lewis here? General Ross has always wanted to ask this question. In the list of members of Avengers at this stage, he did not see Lewis' name. Fury froze for a moment, and said somewhat, he refused to join the Avengers, he belongs to S.H.I.E.L.D for the time being. But I'm trying to invite Louis' big brother, Tony Stark, who is also armored. General Ross nodded, he just understood the situation. As for Louis' refusal, I'm afraid it has something to do with Louis' character. General Ross thinks that Louis is an unrestrained person. As for Tony Stark, even if General Ross doesn't pay attention to Entertainment Weekly, he knows. Tony Stark is Iron Man. General Ross leaves. Fury's expression management collapsed in an instant. It's okay if you don't mention Louis, but when Louis is mentioned, Rui gets angry. Anyway, things get tricky when you get involved with the Stark family. Fury already knew that Tony was using a small palladium arc reactor, and Tony must have been troubled by palladium poisoning as well. Originally thought, by reminding Tony about Howard Stark's legacy, let Tony find a solution on his own. At that time, Tony will definitely express his gratitude and join the Avengers smoothly. However, the goddamn Lewis actually developed the arc reactor with new elements, which caused Fury to lose face and lose his face. Excitedly wanted to remind Tony, but he finished building the new element arc reactor. Tony also showed it to his brother's chief with great heart, this is a gift from Lewis. Fury felt as bad as eating a ton of palladium. This is outrageous, Nima. Fury always felt that he was supposed to stand up and do things himself, but Lewis preempted them all. Fury felt that Louis had a natural ability to overcome himself. Back to New Mexico. Thor has been regarded as a psychopath. Phil Coulson has reduced the control of Thor, allowing him to eat and relax normally. But these are not what Thor wants. He is planning to escape from this prison. Especially, at a time when prisons are getting thinner recently. Thor guessed that something must have happened to the outside world, so he mobilized the staff in the prison. Martial law has already begun in the small town, and those without proof of entry and exit will be included in the watch list. The corner of Lewis's mouth curled into a smile, and the other end of the space barrier was Washington Dulles International Airport. When he came out again, Lewis was holding a 371st class ticket to Belém Airport in New Mexico. To camouflage, you must camouflage seamlessly. Lewis simply disguised the ticket and the proof of entry and exit together. As for Jane Foster and Thor who had seen him, they were directly ignored by Lewis. Jane Foster has been ruled out of the plot. As for Thor, is it feasible for a person who is judged to be mentally abnormal to say something? Lewis sat in the first-class seat, leaning against the window submissively. Not long after, another tall figure walked in. The tall figure said in a tone of surprise and fear, "Mr. Lewis, I never expected to see you here." General Ross felt that he had a little bit of a back, and he could meet Lewis every time he took a plane. "I will definitely not buy a first-class ticket next time." Lewis didn't expect to see General Ross here, but when he thought of General Ross appearing in Washington, the situation seemed clear at a glance. General Ross joins the Avengers. Is General Ross going on a mission? Lewis asked casually. Is it difficult for Mr. Lewis? General Ross was also puzzled. It stands to reason that it is impossible for Fury to do this kind of thing of handing over the task to Avengers and handing it over to SHIELD. If it is cooperation, then it is impossible not to know. Chapter 68, Combat Power Ceiling, subscribe. I just heard that there's an extraterrestrial object in New Mexico, and I'm going to check it out. You know, my armor requires special metals to upgrade. Louis felt that the presence of General Ross was so timely. With the endorsement of General Ross and Phil Coulson, it is absolutely impossible for them to suspect themselves. Hearing Louis' answer, General Ross also heaved a sigh of relief. Then I wish Mr. Lewis good luck. General Ross congratulated. In his heart, he only hoped that after Lewis got off the plane, he would go far away quickly. But the facts are not as expected. When two people appeared outside the town's cordon at the same time, Lewis greeted General Ross very familiarly. General Ross, it seems that we are destined for the same destination. Not to mention General Ross, even Phil Coulson and Hawkeye, who came to greet General Ross together, shivered subconsciously. Lewis, the lingering guy, actually followed here. The video of that battle has simply become the ceiling of Avengers' combat power. Even with the addition of General Ross, it's a dish at all. Phil Coulson, long time no see, are you here to greet me? You don't have to be so polite, I just want to see if the extraterrestrial objects match the armor metal I made. Louis gave Phil Coulson a warm hug. Phil Coulson wanted to cry for help, but both Hawkeye and General Ross silently turned their heads away. You are familiar with Lewis, so go and receive him. Hawkeye and General Ross left in good agreement. Put Phil Coulson aside entirely. Mr. Lewis, the extraterrestrial object is gone. Someone has stolen the extraterrestrial object. We are also looking for it. Phil Coulson had no choice but to explain the situation to Lewis. Really? Do you need my help? Lewis asked warmly and kindly. Mr. Lewis is bothering you. If necessary, we will find you. Phil Coulson replied cautiously, for fear of angering Lewis. Okay, if you need anything, please come to me, after all, I'm also a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. Lewis deliberately emphasized the three words S.H.I.E.L.D, which made Phil Coulson speechless for a while. You also know that you are from S.H.I.E.L.D? Don't piss off director Nick Fury if you know it. The evil S.H.I.E.L.D is up and down, and now everyone is in danger. Even Fury didn't dare to touch Fury's bad luck, so he volunteered to come here. However, no matter how much Phil Coulson complained, he dared not speak out. Lewis and Phil Coulson completed a friendly exchange, and naturally washed away their suspicions. No one would have imagined that Mjolnir, whom they had been looking for day and night, was now lying quietly in Lewis' personal space. With the addition of General Ross, S.H.I.E.L.D's strict investigation has become more thorough. But one thing in common is that no matter who they are, they will not disturb Lewis' quiet life. As the current ceiling of S.H.I.E.L.D's combat power, whoever dares to disturb Lewis will be called death. Lu's purity. When he didn't have to deal with other people's disturbance, Lui began to collect legendary about Wordheim. These legendaries have been handed down as early as thousands of years ago. At that time, Asgard still maintained a close connection with the earth. If Lui wants dwarfs to help him build armor, he must find something that can impress dwarfs. In addition to fine wine and iron ore, this group of dwarfs seems to be as violent as Asgard's pantheon. Every dwarf is a fighter. This got Lewis thinking. In Legendary, as long as you defeat dwarf, you can let dwarf build a weapon for you. However, the myth Legendary is just a legendary after all, so you have to test it yourself if it is true or not. Lewis came to Wordheim again through the address of Wordheim recorded by Tesseract. Only, this time without Loki's magic to help hide his figure. Standing in the middle of a group of dwarfs, Lewis stands out from the crowd and is unique. Look, what's that? Protoss. There is no divine power around him, this is a human being. Humans, how many years has it been since humans came to Wordheim? Woohoo, this is a rare species. Is this human? It looks like it has small arms and legs, and it has no strength at all. Louis became a rare species for the first time, and being surrounded by a group of dwarfs was not a good experience. The curiosity of this group of dwarfs is really strong. Lewis looked around, it was the first time he came alone, and he didn't know the rules. I heard that the dwarf clan has a rule that as long as they defeat you, they can ask you to forge a weapon. Louis shouted loudly. Immediately there were replies from the dwarfs around. Nothing wrong, just beat us. But a weak human like you has no way to fight against the great dwarf. The power of dwarf is beyond the comprehension of humans like you. Countless dwarfs shouted, in their eyes, human beings are always synonymous with weakness. So far, many weapons that have been handed down on the earth for a long time are from the handwriting of dwarfs. After so many years, will the dwarfs abide by this rule? Lewis said mockingly. Great dwarfs come and never break their promises. We are the most disciplined race. Human, are you provoking? Do you want to fight? The dwarfs were stimulated by Lewis' words, and expressed their anger one after another. Lewis' constitution has changed a long time ago, and when faced with so many dwarf auras, he still doesn't change his face. There are even signs of pushing back his aura. The aura of the dwarfs gathered together turned into a huge amounts of forging hammer, smashing towards Lewis. But Lewis' aura condensed into the appearance of a crimson electric drill, piercing through the forging hammer abruptly. Boom! The roar of mental power caused the dwarfs around to take a few steps back. But, obliged, Lewis remained unscathed. This made all the dwarfs look at Lewis with horrified eyes. Humans actually have such an aura? You must be the strongest among human beings. We dwarfs welcome the strongest. A dwarf with a beard around his waist stood up to round the field, he looked very old. Who is the most powerful blacksmith of the dwarf clan? I want to ask him to help make weapons. Lewis also gave it a step down as a matter of course, after all, this is still the territory of the dwarf clan. The most powerful blacksmith of the dwarf clan is naturally the king of the dwarf clan. However, I advise you to give up as a strong human being. The master of the dwarf clan is a very powerful existence. Hearing this, Louis frowned. King Dwarf, as the king of a realm, is definitely not weak, at least he has the power to mobilize a kingdom. Otherwise, why be king? The current self is definitely not an opponent, it seems that he can only settle for the next best thing. Chapter 69 Hammer of the Storm. At Louis' request, the dwarfs surrounded him and came to a huge amounts of redstone workshop. Hot red magma flows into the workshop from the outside. Dun! 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 The heavy hammer again and again is like hitting the heart. If it is a person with a heart problem, if he is resonated by the sound of such a heavy hammer, he may die miserably. This is Langdon, one of the most powerful blacksmiths under the King of Dwarf. The old man of Dwarf introduced. Silver runes are engraved on the door of the workshop, the whole door and the workshop are integrated, and there are faint spatial fluctuations on the surface. Are these magic runes of space? Louis looked curiously, but saw a thick hand with huge amounts of red protruding from the door. A dwarf with a red beard and his entire body as if it had only been soaked in magma walked out. He yawned, looked at the people around him in a daze, and said in a low voice, "What are you all doing at my door? Do you want to fight Langton?" As he spoke, he waved the forging hammer in his hand that was taller than him. Strong! This was Louis's first thought when he saw this dwarf blacksmith. With that kind of momentum, he is definitely a powerhouse, at least not weaker than the eight-legged Pegasus, and even stronger. Louis showed a hint of joy, such a dwarf blacksmith is the most suitable for Louis. Langton rubbed his eyes, and finally saw clearly 307, the outstanding human being Louis. The Protoss of Asgard. Langton's big head was full of question marks. Langdon, this is a human being, from Zeegard. Human. Langton was extremely fast, and he came in front of Louis in an instant. The messy hair stood up high, just reaching Louis's shoulders. Louis could even smell the burnt smell of metal filings and flames colliding together. It's really human. Langton looked at Louis and said, "Human, do you know the rules when you come to me? Beat me, and I will help you build it. If you lose, give me your weapon, I smell a powerful weapon on you." Langton's eyes widened, and the forging hammer in his hand pointed at Louis. "It's a fair rule, so let's fight here." Louis thought about it carefully. The so-called powerful weapons are probably the 555 series armor. Unexpectedly, this dwarf has some skills. "We're going to the arena." As Langton said, he adjusted a few runes on the door of the workshop, and the door turned into a whirlpool-like hole. This is a space channel constructed through magic runes. Louis followed Langton and got in, and the surrounding dwarfs immediately cheered. This kind of confrontation has not been seen for a long time. Humans are an ideal gimmick. Langton is almost the strongest dwarf under the Dwarf King. Everyone is not optimistic that Louis can win. They believe that the Great Dwarf will eventually be invincible. The arena utilizes space magnification technology. It doesn't look big, but after entering, you will find that it is a huge amounts of space. The technology of Asgard and Wordheim is indeed far superior to that of Earth. Boom! The huge amounts of forging hammer hit the ground, and the long handle was knotted together like tree roots. This looks a lot more imposing than Mjolnir, Louis thought to himself. Mjolnir let out a grunt of displeasure, but was unflappable because Louis was telling the truth. This hammer of the storm is made of URU, and the handle of the hammer is made of the trunk of the world tree Ugatrashi. Lang Dunwang introduced his weapon in a loud voice. This forging hammer is made of the same material as Mjolnir, except that it didn't spend too much effort on the runes, but in terms of materials, it can be compared to Mjolnir. Langton looked at Louis, who hadn't shown his weapon yet. Langton is very sensitive, he knows that Louis has the smell of a powerful weapon. Louis took out the mobile phone transformer and pressed a number. 5. 5. 5. Phase. Henshin. Louis yelled lightly. Red's Futty's armor covers the whole body, and the center logo on the belt lights up. Langton, who originally wanted to mock Lewis for taking out a gadget, immediately became serious. Futty's gave him the feeling that it was dangerous. But it doesn't look strong. However, the battles of dwarfs have always been simple and rough. Langton picked up his sledgehammer just as Louis smashed it. Lewis dodges, but the sledgehammer he received is still impartial. Cut, it's the same routine as Mjolnir. Lewis sneered. Scrape apart the space barrier with both hands, and appear behind Langton in the next second. The sledgehammer was still locked on Lewis' body, but it was Langton who stood in front of Lewis. A nimble human being. Langton grabbed his weapon and swept it behind him. Lewis held it with both hands, and was still swept away for several kilometers. Every attack of Langton carries extremely strong power. In terms of power, the dwarf clan is one of the best existences in the entire universe. Futty's was repelled, and 2 long corridors were drawn in the battlefield, and smoke and dust were everywhere for a while. Boy, give up, you can't stop dwarf's sledgehammer. Langton laughed loudly. But the only response to him was Lewis' cold and ruthless voice amidst the smoke and dust. Start up! Silver and black demons loomed in the smoke and dust, and the core matrix on the chest was blurred into a still picture in this lesson. When Lewis faced Langton, he knew that he couldn't rely on a regular state to win. Therefore, Lewis found the right opportunity, and the accelerated form opened instantly. Several of Red's drills locked Langton in place. The power of space, but it's not strong enough. Langton's complexion turned red, but he was still able to move under the lock of the crimson electric drill. The forging hammer in his hand swung recklessly, smashing the locking drill. Lewis' eyelids were twitching wildly. This Langton was ridiculously strong. Crimson drill told to turn. Louis increased the lock of the control force. The body penetrated Langton's body at a speed of Mach 50. The crimson electric drill rotated to the limit and exploded. Crimson electric drill 7 combos. Boom. Tick. Hot blood dripped onto the ground drop by drop. This was from Langton's blood. He was injured. Under Lewis' attack, Langton's proud and strong body was actually injured. The dwarf's onlookers were all shocked. Oh my God, Langton, are you hurt? When was the last time Langton got hurt? The great god of forging, this human being is simply too powerful. When all the dwarfs were amazed at Lewis' strength, Lewis was the most speechless one. Although the space of the crimson electric drill was locked, it was destroyed by Langton. However, that is still a 17-hit combo of the crimson electric drill. Are you bleeding a little? Is it over? Chapter 70 Burst Form, The First Battle. Subscribe. Langton's face was a little ugly. How long had he not been injured like this? Human, I admit that you are a strong man, but it's not enough. The great Langton will never be defeated. Langton shouted loudly. The situation in the sky suddenly changed, and the power of the hurricane wandered, dispersed, and gathered in the sky. The storm is gathering, and even the arena has been affected. The center of the storm stared at Lewis like a huge amount of eyes. This is the power of Storm Hammer, and Langton happens to be able to control it. You are qualified to build armor for me. Lewis looked at Langton's strength with satisfaction. Majestic. Powerful. The breath of Storm Hammer and Langton echoed. With such a tacit understanding, Jan is undoubtedly the forger of this Storm Hammer. If we say, Mjolnir is the king of dwarfitry tailor-made for Thor, then the forger of the Hammer of Storms, Langton, has forging strength comparable to that of the dwarf king. Hearing Lewis' words, Langton groaned. He felt that Lewis was mocking him. If he wanted Langton to build armor, he had to defeat him. The power of the storm swept the audience. Like a sharp knife, trying to chop Lewis into pieces. Snapped. Louis snapped his fingers, and the Futty's armor on his body began to change. The silver black began to recede, and the bright red like blood diffused, and the blood energy flowing in the blood energy tube was Black's blood energy. This is metamorphosis where the blood has evolved to the extreme, and it is now stimulated in advance. Phase, burst form. Louis said softly. This is his first attempt at using Phase's burst form. Every inch of his body is filled with absolute explosive power. This kind of power far exceeds that of Phase in common form, and Louis even feels that he can instantly kill Loki with a random blow. Loki in Asgard, far away in Asgard, sneezed. Loki, I don't know why, I always feel offended. Tread. Louis stepped forward, one step fell, and the ground of the arena shattered instantly, just a random step, and the power burst out a small shockwave. Langton's face became serious, and he took a few steps back. Shockwave barely came to his feet, the gravel was sharp, and the irregular spider web spread to everything around. Terrible power. Langton couldn't help admiring. This is how he felt the breath of the treasure, the powerful armor. As long as I win, this piece of armor will be mine. Langton laughed loudly, with longing for Phase in his eyes. Then try it. Louis snorted coldly. The aura on his body spread out, and he even fought against the eye of the storm in the sky. Huge amounts of blood, the symbol in red, pierced the sky and drove the eye of the storm aside. This is a battle of the strongest. Even the other 8 great divine kingdoms could vaguely feel the fighting atmosphere here. Langton didn't want to wait any longer. Louis was gathering momentum, and Langton wanted to interrupt him. With huge amounts of storm hammer in his hand, he swung it like nothing, sweeping away all enemies. Just the huge amounts of weight make people feel the pressure. The space is broken by the waved power. Louis looked at Langton, who was attacking with cold eyes, and held the exclusive weapon SB555T in the burst form as a photon destruction sword in his hand. This is the first time Louis has used the burst form, and it is also the first time he has used this weapon. In order to cooperate with the burst form, this weapon can only be used in the burst form regardless of its weight or energy. Cut! Louis shouted loudly, looking at Langton, who was attacking. The photon destruction sword swung very slowly, but directly crossed the spatial dimension. When Langton was still more than 10 meters away from Louis, he cut out. Huge amounts of the blade fell on the hammer of the storm. The crystallization of wisdom from the 2 worlds collides together. One side is the forging peak of Wordheim, and the other side is the crystallization of Earth's technology. With majestic power, 2 phases collide. Boom! The huge amounts of explosion destroyed the space in the arena, and the unscrupulous storm of power began to sweep outside the arena. The previous dwarf kings who built the arena probably never imagined that the power of a battle would explode to such an extent. Many of the dwarfs living in Wordheim are common dwarfs, and they have no power to protect themselves. When faced with such a storm of power, they can only watch helplessly. Wait to die. The dwarf king Itri had noticed this battle a long time ago, but even he didn't react. A power storm has formed and is intensifying. Great forging god, are you going to abandon us? 0. Ask for flowers. May the fire and metal be with us forever. A great battle is a glorious death. At the very center of the power storm, the hammer of the storm sheltered Langton, who was knocked out by huge amounts of power. But that's all. The hammer of the storm itself is somewhat difficult to protect itself in such a vortex. In the burst form, Phase held the photon destruction sword in his hand, cut a path in the power storm, and came to Langton's side. The birth of this power storm, the aftermath of the battle, is just a fuse. Louis looked at the power enough to destroy the world with a wry smile, put Langton on his back, and prepared to look for the exit. I need to find a stable space and teleport out through the space. Louis shouted. The Mjolnir inside hums and jumps out of space. The hammer of the storm also responded, and the 2 hammers of the same origin supported a stable space for Louis. Using the power of the space gem, Louis opened the space barrier, carried Langton on his back, took 2 hammers, and drilled in. Outside of the power storm, most of Vathium's town has been destroyed. Louis watched the storm helplessly, as if he had gotten into trouble. Could it be that he accidentally destroyed a kingdom of God? He won't take the blame for it. Just when Louis was thinking about whether to return to the earth to avoid the limelight, a gold sledgehammer fell from the sky, smacking heavily on the force storm. Hammer after hammer. Like forging, every hammer seems to squeeze the power storm. The dwarf king in golden armor Itri was also relieved when he saw the giant hammer appearing in the sky. Across the space distance, came to the front of Louis. Although he was wearing golden armor, the dwarf king's height seemed a little shorter than Kamen's dwarf. Human? You almost destroyed my country. Yitri looked at Louis dissatisfied. His eyes turned to Langton, who was slowly waking up, and his tone became even more angry. Langton, you still endanger the peace of Wordheim. As the king of dwarf, I will expel you and never return. And you, human beings, are not allowed to enter Wordheim for life. King Dwarf issued the final expulsion order, representing the will of the entire Wordheim kingdom. Both Louis and Langton felt unwelcome from Wordheim. Chapter 71 Thunder means, for subscription. This represents the will of the world. Both Louis and Langton felt the world was pushing them out. Louis glanced at Langton apologetically. Although the cause of this incident was a coincidence, Louis was also partly responsible. Langton gave Itri a deep look, but said nothing. He silently returned to his workshop, and after a while, he came out with a package on his back. The hammer of the storm turned into a small necklace and hung it around Langton's neck. Human powerhouse, I may need to stay with you for a while. But don't worry, I will pay you. If you beat me once, I will build you a weapon. If you help me once, I can only repay you with a weapon. Langton sighed and said to Louis. The dwarfs expelled by Wordheim basically drifted to various places in the 890 universe, making a living by building weapons. The weapons produced by the dwarf family are exquisite and durable. This also caused the dwarf race to be a very popular race in the universe. Together with the elves of Alfheim, they are listed as one of the best-selling races in the universe. Therefore, a dwarf family wandering alone in the universe can easily become the prey of interstellar traffickers. Louis looked at Langton, and the ecstasy in his heart was beyond words. This is a forging master of the dwarf family, and a strong man of the dwarf family. Louis was almost incoherent, because Langton chose to follow him, which was beyond his expectation. Louis, who calmed himself down, immediately said, "You are very welcome, Langton. I will prepare the best workshop for you, as well as rare minerals." Langton nodded, still recovering from the sentimentality of being away from home. Louis opened the space barrier, and the location was set in New York. He needed to arrange a place for Langton to live. There are many tall buildings, and huge amounts of glass curtain walls reflect the blue sky. This was the first time Langton had seen such a scene. "This is Midgard," Langton said incredulously. This is not the same as the Earth he imagined. More than 2,000 years ago, when I came to Midgard, it was still a large area of mountains and forests. Now it looks like a place where gods live. Louis looked at Langton, who had never seen the world, and thought that the technological development of Asgard and Wordheim had entered a bottleneck period. Therefore, such changes will not occur within a few thousand years. But the technological development of mankind has only just begun. Langton does as the Romans do, and he has basically handed himself over to Louis. "You can live here first, and you can call a nanny if you need anything. I still have some things to deal with." Louis brought Langton to the villa area under Stark Industries, where there are many empty villas. Anyway, Langton was only allowed to live there for a while. Langton didn't have any temper either, and he needed some time to think about his future. Louis gave Langton a mobile phone and a phone number, so that he could call himself if he had a stomachache. Then Louis opened the space barrier and returned to the small town in New Mexico. If it wasn't for the feeling that the town had changed, Louis might still be interested in chatting with Langton. New Mexico. Phil Coulson, Hawkeye, and General Ross looked at the messy prison, and their faces were so dark that they could drip water. Thor escapes from prison. As a mysterious figure with no background, Phil Coulson thought he was insane, so he didn't arrange too many guards. As the only prison in this small town, there were only 5 prisoners at most. 4 of them are car thieves and punks. No one knew that a big fish broke in this time. As the Prince of Asgard, Thor is born with the demeanor of a king. It was easy to convince the 5 little ones. Just when most people were focusing on finding Mjolnir, Thor took the opportunity to move. Knocked out the prison guard and successfully escaped from the prison. When Lewis came back, he saw Thor hiding in a young man's home, wearing a non-mainstream cyberpunk style. Not to mention, as long as you are a prince, you can look good in anything you wear. However, the town is only a little bigger. According to the family background of several young men, Phil Coulson and others soon surrounded Thor's place. Give up resistance. I don't know what organization you are from, but S.H.I.E.L.D. is not something you can provoke. Phil Coulson said coldly. Swish! The troops with live ammunition raised their guns in unison and aimed at Thor's hiding place. What should we do, Boss Thor? We are surrounded. A little boy was crying. This was the first time he had seen such a scene. Their target is me. If you go out, nothing will happen. Thor said calmly. Knowing this organization called S.H.I.E.L.D., the goal is yourself. But, boss, how do you experience it? Don't worry, your boss is a god, and nothing will happen. Thor squeezed out a smile. Watching the few men he had just recruited go out one by one, Thor slammed his fist hard on the ground. Pat! The bright red blood told Thor that he is no longer a god. Even though he lost his divine power, he was only a little stronger than the common people. Lewis sighed when he saw Thor's behavior. Thor was still too young. If it was me, I would never do such a stupid operation. Even if it is to let these subordinates escape separately and buy time for themselves, it is better than what they are doing now. The 5 little ones quickly reached the safe zone, and they all breathed a sigh of relief. Just when they thought they were safe, General Ross waved his hand lightly, and the 5 young men were immediately pushed to the ground. Ross, known as General Thunder, has always had only purpose in his eyes. There are no morals and rules. As long as Thor can be caught, it doesn't matter if these 5 people are dead. Thor, who was immersed in his incompetence, heard the calls for help from the younger brothers outside. Brother, help me. They don't keep their promises. Please 2.9s, don't kill me. The shout hit Thor's nerves. Thor, surrender, come out obediently, I can still let them go, otherwise. General Ross sneered, and pointed his pistol at the head of one of them. Boom! His head burst like a watermelon, and the splash of blood almost made everyone present feel sick. Even Hawkeye and Phil Coulson, who are used to the scene, felt uncomfortable. But General Ross has power second only to fury, and no one can tell him what to do. Thor, this is just the beginning. General Ross took the towel handed over by his subordinates and casually wiped the blood spattered on his face. Every minute, I will kill one person, and when the rest of the people are dead, I will blast here. I don't care if you live or die. Now, the countdown begins. Chapter 72 Death Blacklist, for subscription. Even Lewis frowned when he saw what General Ross did. As expected of General Thunder. The means of doing things is cruel and merciless. Thor's eyes were full of murderous intent. If he still had divine power, he would definitely rush out and kill all these bastards. But now he is just a god who has lost his power. There was nothing he could do. The countdown of General Ross entered the end of the first minute. No, don't kill me. I was coerced, he coerced us to escape from prison. Please, General, don't kill me. 6. 5. 4. Boom. Gunshots rang out again, and the number of servings did not come to an end at all. Another body fell to the ground. I'm really sorry. I accidentally slipped my hand. When I'm old, I just can't control myself. General Ross said in an apologetic tone. Indifferent. Cruel. With it comes the fear of not knowing when you will die. There are 3 more, you still have 3 minutes. General Ross said cruelly. The tone did not treat these few people as human beings at all. Should I continue to hide? Be a coward. What a cruel person. You can't save anyone, you just take them to death. General Ross said mockingly that he was prodding Thor. Thor thought of the reason why he was demoted to the earth, and his eyes were full of remorse. The count on the other side has come to tens of seconds. Plus. Hatred. 8. General Ross said calmly. Every report seems to be mocking Thor's incompetence. No one knows when General Ross will slip. Tick. Tick. It was the sound of dripping sweat. Stop it, Thor yelled loudly. A body that was much thinner than before slowly walked out of the house. Now Thor can't see that he is the Prince of Asgard at all, and the torture he suffered in prison has made him sloppy and tattered. Throw it in a slum casually, and you won't feel disobedient in the slightest. Although it is still a handsome face, but handsomeness has no effect in front of strength. It seems that our Mr. Tower is very sensible. General Ross sneered. Let them go. Thor said in a deep voice. General Ross waved his hand, and the remaining 3 fled immediately. It's such a touching camaraderie that they gave up on you and ran away, General Ross said with a smile. Thor didn't speak, he didn't expect much loyalty from these temporary recruits. Looking at the unarmed Thor, General Ross said, Are you going by yourself, or are we going to tie you unconscious and take you away? Thor didn't speak, his cold eyes engraved the appearance of General Ross deeply in his mind. Someday he'll have his revenge, on S.H.I.E.L.D., on General Ross. Thor was escorted to a special observation room to prevent Thor from escaping again. Facing such a boss, both Phil Coulson and Hawkeye felt a bit difficult to deal with. I heard about General Ross' iron blood and cruelty when he was in SHIELD. Seeing it now, it really lives up to its reputation. With names like that, God knows why Fury made General Ross a member of the Avengers, and the leader. Louis also has a new sense of General Ross's view. At first he just thought this guy was unreasonable. Now, Louis hated General Ross a little. I really want to find a chance to kill him. Or hand General Ross over to Thor for execution to get closer to Asgard. Louis hadn't figured it out yet. It's just that on Louis' death blacklist, General Ross's name has been silently marked with a cross. And in faraway Asgard, Loki sneaked into Asgard's treasury while Odin was meeting with Dwarf King Idri. As early as in the fight with the Frost Titan, Loki found that his skin would turn blue when attacked by the Frost Titan. Combined with Odin's completely different attitude towards Thor and himself, this gave Loki a guess in his mind. Finally, when he saw the treasure of the Frost Titan in the treasury, the Frost Coffin, Loki once felt a strange change in the blood in his body. Loki carefully touched this Frost Titan fetish with his hand, the extremely cold breath almost enveloped everything, but for Loki it was not hurt at all. The blood of the Frost Titan sleeping in his body began to recover, and Loki's body also transformed into an frost blue for a while. Odin, who has seen everything, rushed to the treasure house immediately, but he faced a Loki who had already guessed the truth. I'm the Frost Titan, father. Loki questioned with an affirmative tone. Odin sighed, not expecting that this hadn't been hidden from Loki. You will always be my child. Odin wanted to redeem this relationship, so he told the truth back then. Loki, you and Thor are both born to be kings. I hope Asgard and Jotunheim can let go of their hatred. The purpose of adopting Loki is that Thor and Loki can be the kings of Asgard and Jotunheim, so that the 2 worlds will no longer be hostile. Why must it be me? You have always told me that I am a Protoss of Asgard, and now you are telling me to become the king of the Frost Titan. Everything is decided by you, you have never considered my feelings, father. Loki's eyes are red 310, like an angry lion. And at the moment, the young male lion is challenging the status of the Lion King. Odin tried to explain, but Loki's chow hit the old man. During this time, the war between Frost Titan and Asgard exhausted Odin even more. Under the double pressure, Odin passed out on the ground without saying a word. Guard, guard! Loki yelled in a panic. Although he was questioning Odin, he never thought that something would happen to Odin. Odin was soon helped to the bed by the guards and the goddess Frigga, who rushed over. It's Odin's sleep. Frigga felt Odin's aura and breathed a sigh of relief, although this time it's earlier, but fortunately it's not other problems. Don't worry, Loki. Loki looked at the sleeping Odin with some guilt, not knowing what attitude he should take to face him. Mother, when will father and king wake up? I don't know, the usual eye of Odin will be ready, but this time it's a bit special, maybe there are other reasons. Then father, why do you want to hide my life experience? I was picked up by him. Frigga was stunned for a moment, took Loki's hand, and comforted him. That's because I don't want you to feel different from others, it's to protect you, your father and I treat you as our own child. Chapter 73 The Destroyer, for subscription. Loki nodded calmly, but when he lowered his head, a trace of hostility flashed in his eyes. Frigga took Odin's scepter, the gun of eternity, and handed it to Loki. Loki froze for a moment, not understanding what Frigga meant. In your father's absence, Loki, you will assume the role of King of Asgard. Well, I'm the King of Asgard now. Yes, you were King of Asgard before your father came to his senses. Frigga hopes that such a move can make Loki feel cared for. Neither I nor Odin have ever favored either of the two brothers. But Frigg didn't see the ambition hidden in Loki's eyes. He swore that he must do better than Thor, and as for Thor, stay on Earth forever. Loki sits on the throne of Asgard, feeling the pinnacle of power. Seems like something is missing? Ah, yes, Thor. As long as Thor returns, he will never be the only choice for the throne of Asgard. Loki supported his neck with one hand, each scheme flashed through his mind, and finally settled on one of them. Globe, New Mexico. Thor has been caught for days. There is no trial, no punishment. Thor felt as if he had been forgotten. Phil Coulson and others are discussing in the conference room. They've pretty much turned the town upside down, but haven't found any information about Mjolnir. The only mysterious person is Thor. Is it really necessary to take that guy who seems to have a mental problem back? General Ross asked doubtfully. According to him, a lunatic like Thor should just be killed. He said he was from Asgard, the Prince of Asgard. I think it is necessary to investigate further. Phil Coulson's keen sense of smell as an agent made him feel that the things inside were not so simple. You can do whatever you want, and this person will be handed over to you. General Ross is not interested in Thor. He extracted Thor's blood, which research showed was nothing more than a common human. General Ross also knows that it is very difficult to find an existence like Dr. Banner. It's a pity that Dr. Banner was instantly killed by Lewis's combat power ceiling, leaving no bones left. This is the eternal pain in the heart of General Ross. At this meeting, it was decided that S.H.I.E.L.D. is preparing to evacuate from New Mexico State. They've wasted a lot of resources here. And, with all three cotters here, Director Nick Fury also feels a little empty inside SHIELD. So an evacuation order was issued. No matter how unhappy he was, Fury realized that Excellence human resources could no longer be wasted. Get ready to evacuate, let the researchers go first. General Ross gave the order. All okay, Phil Coulson and Hawkeye ready to execute. Suddenly, the mountains shook for a while. The entire conference room was shaking, and even the entire town felt the shock. "What's going on?" General Ross shouted. "Report, sir, a strange metal creature appeared in the town." Immediately a soldier came in and reported. "Metal beings." General Ross and Phil Coulson thought of someone at the same time. "Louis, sigh. Which bastard is slandering himself?" Louis naturally also felt the appearance of the destroyer armor, when he didn't interfere too much with Loki's plot line. Loki has come to this point, the destroyer is only eligible to command the Odin scepter. Odin wouldn't do that. Then, it could only be Loki who became the proxy king. Through the window, Louis could see the destroyer whose whole body reflected metallic luster, and the bright yellow light in his body contained extremely powerful power. Seriously, this is one of the most powerful armors in the Marvel Universe. This is the armor that Odin built against the Celestials. It's a pity that it was used by Loki. The power displayed by the uncontrolled destroyer is not worth mentioning at all. He was directly crushed by Thor, who had recovered his divine power. However, there is no Mjolnir now, and Thor, who is not on the original plot line, whether he can recover his divine power is still unknown. The tall hunters searched for Thor's traces in the small town, and at the same time destroyed them aimlessly. In the absence of Thor, it is Loki's command to let Thor appear through destruction. It's just that Loki never imagined that Thor was still imprisoned by Shield. What the destroyer has done has violated the bottom line of S.H.I.E.L.D. in Avengers. General Ross looked at the destroyer even more rage. Although he doesn't pay attention to the lives of these civilians, the destroyer's actions are undoubtedly provocative. Roar! General Ross let out a roar, snarling, and Red's muscles knotted and spread. The body size also became taller, and General Ross, who had completely turned into a Red Titan, was almost as tall as the destroyer. "You pissed me off," General Ross snarled loudly at the destroyer. He rushed forward with all his strength, and punched the destroyer back a few steps. He hates armor the most, and it's something he'll never forget, the humiliation of getting killed by a piece of red armor. This is the hero of the Avengers, the Red King. Phil Coulson saw General Ross's transformation form for the first time. No wonder the code name is Red King. It looks really powerful, and full of sense. The destroyer was attacked before he reacted and put General Ross in the hostile sequence. Find hostile targets, the combat level is the most advanced. The destroyer started the battle procedure, and the energy in his body was still running at high speed. At the seams of the armor, he could vaguely see bright yellow energy surging. "Come!" General Ross vented his displeasure at being crushed by Louis on the destroyer. But he ignored that his attack did not have the slightest impact on the destroyer. The destroyer's material is even stronger than Asgard's Uru metal, harder than Mjolnir. The Red Titan rode on the destroyer, punching punch after punch, hitting really well. But the destroyer, who had entered the fighting state, raised his hand lightly, and caught the Red Titan's falling fist. With a casual flick, several thousand people will come to the hospital to retaliate. The Red Titan rolled several times on the ground, and fell a little dizzy. General Ross never thought at all that the armor that he was pressing down on, but now waving his hands, is such a powerful force. He had no time to think. The destroyer was extremely fast, and appeared beside the Red Titan in the next instant. The heavy fist slammed into the ground. Bang! The ground is deeply sunken. Chapter 74. Hurry up and ask Louis to come over, please subscribe. Under the violent hammer of the destroyer, the Red Titan's head was smashed into the ground immediately. Only half of his body was left twitching outside. Hiss! Everyone gasped. It was such a simple battle that was brutal to the limit. The power displayed by the destroyer is too powerful, too invincible. Where did such a monster come from? Phil Coulson asked gravely. The peak combat power on his side was actually instantly killed. Phil Coulson felt that this world was very absurd. Red King, shouldn't it be very powerful? He was so majestic before, How could he be counter-killed in an instant, or the kind that has no resistance? Phil Coulson felt that his brain was not enough, and his brain circuit really couldn't understand such a reversal. Hawkeye's reaction was faster, seeing that the destroyer was also preparing to attack the Red King. Immediately guessing that the Red King might still be alive, he took out his own bow and arrow and shot at the destroyer. He wanted to attract the attention of the destroyer. Call out! The high-speed rotating arrows precisely hit the destroyer's chest. But unscathed. Ding! The crisp thud 640 sounded a little ridiculous, and it didn't even trigger the destroyer's hostile program. Scraping! Such a light attack is nothing more than scraping for the destroyer. Not even a layer of shack can be scraped off. Hawkeye's face darkened. Without saying a word, he took out several arrows loaded with special arrows from his back. Whoosh! A series of dense explosions exploded flames on the destroyer's body, covering the entire destroyer in flames. Under attack, confirm the hostile target. The mechanical sound of the destroyer sounded. The flames of the explosion did not affect the destroyer in the slightest. But with the destroyer's hostile program activated, that's enough. Hawkeye didn't intend to fight the metal monster, and found that he had offended the destroyer, and immediately began to dodge and flee. The destroyer also gave up lying in the pothole, and has not been slowed down by God General Ross. The data scanning of the double pupils showed the basic data of Hawkeye. It is so weak that it can be crushed to death with a light pinch. Seeing Hawkeye, who was about to escape and hide, Destroyer released energy lightning from both hands. Crackling! Dense energy lightning began to gather, rushing towards Hawkeye. This is just the most common attack for the Destroyer, but for the Hawkeye, it's dead on touch. Hawkeye didn't think about resisting at all, and ran away frantically, wanting to stay away from the attack range of the energy lightning. Boom! Boom! The attack failed, but the constant energy lightning continued, as if the consumption could not be seen. Roar! The roar of the Red King came from behind the destroyer. He was not injured, but was a little confused by the heavy punch. Now that he recovered, he saw that Hawkeye, who was also a member of the Avengers Alliance, was under attack, and immediately rage-pinned the destroyer to the ground from behind. The fist the size of a sandbag waved and hammered with all its strength. Unleash your power! Punch after punch, the destroyer's head was smashed into the ground abruptly. But the metal material is not affected at all, even shape-shifting is not done. Phil Coulson, go get Louis here! General Ross yelled loudly. Now I can still suppress the destroyer, and with Hawkeye's restraint, there is no problem in dealing with it. But if you want to deal with this big guy, you can only hand it over to Louis. General Ross originally suspected that this metal monster was built by Louis, which was a bit too fierce. Louis stood on the balcony of the hotel, watching the battle in the distance. At the same time, in his heart, he silently estimated the combat effectiveness of the destroyer. This thing was built by Odin to deal with the members of the Celestial Group. According to legend, a Celestial Group was once wiped out. But now it seems that the rumors are wrong. The strength and energy fluctuations displayed by the destroyer are all within a fag, Louis's acceptable range. However, just to be on the safe side, Louis opened the space barrier and returned to New York. Langton was carving runes inside the villa. When he saw Louis appearing, he immediately put down his work. What are you doing? Louis looked at the densely carved ceiling. Suddenly, I felt that it would be better for me to build a workshop for Langton as soon as possible. This house is gorgeous, but it's not practical. Even carving runes is troublesome. Langton complained. He spent a lot of effort, and found the right power to carry out the rune carving. 2 black lines appeared on Louis' forehead, and Langton's performance was really unexpected, making people dumbfounded. This is Earth, not Wordheim. Not all houses are made of magic materials. Louis explained helplessly. Come with me, I need your help. After all, Lewis opened the space barrier. Langton jumped off the ladder and plunged into the space barrier, followed by Lewis. The battle in the distance continues. Langton's eyes widened, looking at the destroyer who was fighting the Red King. This Langton was incoherent, almost speechless. Obviously, he definitely recognized the destroyer. This is the destroyer armor? What's the situation? Is Odin planning to destroy the Earth? Langton looked at the battle carefully, and quickly overturned his previous conclusions. No, the power is too weak, no one is controlling it, no wonder. However, why is the destroyer here? Only those who have the Odin scepter can refer to it. Could it be that? Langton glanced at Lewis beside him, and said slowly, Odin was killed. Ahem. Lewis choked on Langton's words. Of course not. No other powerhouse in level Godfather can die so easily. Lewis denied Langton's guess without even thinking about it. In the entire universe, there are very few people who can kill Odin. Lewis looked at the destroyer who resisted the Red King's attack and knocked the Red King into the air with an energy lightning, and said in a deep voice, "Do you know how to deal with it?" Langton asked this question. This is a bit difficult. The destroyer's metal is harder than you. It has been endowed with magic runes by Odin, and it also possesses part of Odin's power. It is very difficult to defeat. Langton frowned. It was originally planned to build a weapon for Lewis and it was over. In the end, what kind of gods did I meet as my employer? The destroyers have come out. Is the next step ready to challenge the celestial group? Is there nothing harder than this metal? URU is the hardest metal in Asgard and even the entire universe. Even the Odin scepter is made of URU. If you want to destroy the body of the destroyer, you can only rely on weapons made of URU metal. After thinking for a while, Langton took out his storm hammer and handed it to Lewis. Chapter 75. The price starts from the ground, for subscription. Use it, as long as you have enough power, you can destroy the destroyer. It's nothing more than a destroyer that no one controls. The Odin Regiment's destroyer group relies not only on the destroyer, but also on Odin's originally powerful divine power. Langton told the truth of the matter. The destroyer has always been a myth, considered the pinnacle of Asgard. But Odin is the existence that supports the destroyer to become stronger. Lewis nodded. Langton's words were exactly the same as what Lewis originally thought. But seeing Langton's storm hammer, Lewis also took out Mjolnir from the space. Jingle! The two hammers collided together, and there was a sense of competition between them. This is Mjolnir? Why is Thor's weapon in your hand? Langston recognized Mjolnir. To be precise, the Hammer of the Storm was created by Langdon, ready to challenge Mjolnir, who was created by King Dwarf. I'll talk about this later, I'll go and get rid of this guy first. By the way, can you smelt this thing and recycle it? Lewis looked at the destroyer, the metal shell. In Lewis' opinion, at least two powerful armors could be built. Langton took a deep breath, not expecting Lewis to actually make such a plan. No one has ever dared to fight the destroyer's idea, which is tantamount to provoking Asgard. But Lewis' words reminded Langton. It seems to work. Leave it to me, there is no metal in the world that dwarf can't smelt, or a weapon that can't be forged. Langton is quite confident that even if it is the supreme masterpiece of Asgard craftsmen, if it is placed in his own hands, he will still have to go back to the furnace and rebuild it. Bang bang bang! Bang bang bang! There was a series of hasty knocks on the door. Phil Coulson never imagined that the matter would eventually evolve into that he would come to Lewis for help. What's the matter? Lewis asked Langton to keep silent. Mr. Lewis, please help us, that metal monster outside, we are not opponents. Phil Coulson said. He ran over and was a little out of breath now. Solving it, what good can I do? Lewis squinted his eyes slightly, sitting on the ground and raising his price. Mr. Louis, you're from S.H.I.E.L.D. Phil Coulson yelled. What Lewis did was obviously blackmailing. Blackmailing. Are you blaming me? Lewis' cold voice sounded. Don't dare. Phil Coulson shuddered. He almost forgot that Lewis was able to beat the Red King, and he was the ceiling of combat power. So, what benefits are you going to give me? Lewis suddenly became a little anxious. Anyway, Red King and Hawkeye can drag for a while, crashing. It should be Fury who cares most about the life and death of the Red King and Hawkeye. I need to contact director Nick Fury. Phil Coulson was out of control. Louis didn't speak. Phil Coulson had called Fury. Phil Coulson, what's up? Fury had heard too much bad news lately. Hopefully, by dispatching General Ross this time, the Avengers can bring themselves good news. Chief, we have a metal monster. General Ross and Barton are fighting hard, and Mr. Louis is there, but Phil Coulson doesn't know how to fight Fury. Lewis sit on the ground and raise the price thing. What did he ask for? Fury asked, fighting back his anger. As director, the most important thing he should consider is the superhero's life. Originally there were only a few superheroes, in case 2 died in New Mexico. The Avengers Alliance has really become an empty shell. Moreover, General Ross is still one of the powerful generals in the military. If something happened to General Ross, he himself, SHIELD director, could not get away with it. So, save. Must be saved. He didn't say. Phil Coulson could feel the rage coming through the phone. Then you just ask him and give him the phone. But Mr. Louis never let me in. Phil Coulson wants to cry but has no tears. As an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., he really has no temper in front of Lewis. Lewis's identity, status, and strength can ignore Phil Coulson. Phil Coulson's aura when facing Thor was gone in an instant. Phil Coulson, you. Fury was really going to be mad at Phil Coulson. While Fury was talking to Phil Coulson, Louis was whispering to Langton what metal to use for SHIELD. Mr. Lewis, the vibranium you mentioned is called sound-absorbing steel in the universe. It is a very rare metal. As for the adamantium and cabernet alloy you mentioned, I don't know. If there is, it's best to take a look. Langton was also a little excited. He didn't expect that there would be sound-absorbing steel, vibranium, a rare metal in the universe, on Earth. 0. Ask for flowers. There are also alloys that sound awesome. It seems that following Mr. Lewis to Earth is indeed a good choice. After discussing with Langton, Lewis had a plan in mind. Phil Coulson, I need a large quantity of vibranium metal. Louis' voice came from inside the door. No, it's impossible. Before Fury could answer, Phil Coulson was the first to jump up. Vibranium costs $10,000 per gram, and Lewis's large batches are definitely not a matter of 1 or 2 grams. The entire S.H.I.E.L.D. does not know if it can scrape together 1 or 200 grams. This is not considered a strategic material, but a research material for some researchers. S.H.I.E.L.D. is also dreaming of replicating vibranium. Lewis, you have another request. S.H.I.E.L.D. does not have a large batch, no more than 200 grams. Fury's voice was turned on so that Lewis could hear it. That's 200 grams, but it's not enough for me to make a move. I also need adamantium and the synthesis formula of carbona alloy. Louis hadn't planned on getting much vibranium in the first place. There's as much of this stuff as you want in Wakanda, and whether you steal it or rob it, Louis can always get it. The ultimate goal of Lewis is still the synthesis formula of adamantium and cabernet alloy. Phil Coulson and Fury were silent at the same time, as Lewis demanded, whether high or low. 1. I can only give one synthesis formula. Fury thought for a while and said. He was testing Lewis' bottom line. 1 kind, I want adamantium synthesis formula. But need some samples of adamantium. Cabernet alloy, I need kilograms. Lewis made a tone that he was at a disadvantage, but Lewis behind the door was already happy. Langton has made it clear that if it is an alloy, he can analyze the metal composition inside by means of tempering. The synthesis formula is just a cover. Hearing Lewis's concession, Fury immediately said, "It's a deal, that's it. Things I'll send to Stark Industries, but you get what you pay for, Lewis, don't be lazy." Lewis showed a confident smile, and said, "Director Nick Fury, you can rest assured to receive the goods, I am the Crown reputation." Chapter 76 The Storm Comes, subscribe. Henshin. Lewis jumped down from the balcony and completed his transformation in mid-air. Bang bang bang! The blaster pistol aimed a few shots at the destroyer. However, because the Red King and the destroyer were fighting together, the Red King was also shot a few times. The battle between the two sides started. General Ross glared at Lewis, who was walking over slowly, and said in a very unfriendly tone, "Lewis, are you trying to kill me too?" I'm sorry, my hands are slippery. When people get old, it's easy to lose control of themselves." Lewis stopped in his tracks, his eyes full of banter. General Ross was momentarily speechless. Isn't Lewis's words just copying what he said before? Phil Coulson also came outside, and seeing Louis being the first to clash with General Ross, he shouted loudly, "Mr. Louis, don't forget your deal with 963 Director Nick Fury." "Don't worry, I know." Lewis stretched his waist. "Just now, I was just provoking General Ross. His sanctimonious behavior is really disgusting. I am afraid that such a person will not live long." In Faiz's bright yellow compound eyes, Lewis was watching every move of the destroyer. During the attack just now, the destroyer had already included Lewis in the hostile sequence. Energy lightning appeared in front of Lewis in an instant, cutting through the air, and even the air was filled with an aura of destruction. Lewis didn't panic, and cut out the photon sword in his hand. Clang! The two collided, but there was the sound of metal collision. What a tough monster! Lewis put away his original contempt. The destroyer is indeed the pinnacle of Asgard. Even without Odin's control, its original power is enough to crush most enemies. However, the destroyer also has its downsides. That is slow action, and this slow action is relative. Perhaps Loki didn't fully activate the destroyer via the Odin scepter. But even so, the oppressive force brought by the destroyer is obvious. Jingle! A series of iron strikes sounded. Every attack of Louis can be slashed on the body of the destroyer. But the damage done is almost negligible. The material of Faiz is already the best alloy that Lewis can find. Basically, among the alloy grades of Stark Industry, this one is the first. But even so, there is still no way to cause damage to the destroyer. Sure enough, it still depends on the hammer of the storm. Lewis kicked the destroyer's chest, and quickly retreated more than 10 meters with the help of reaction force. With a wave of his hand, the space crack was opened, and a huge amount of hammer was pulled out by Lewis. Indistinctly, the breath of the storm was surging, and the color of the sky began to change. General Ross has already recovered his body, surrounded by the blood he spit out. The battle with the destroyer had a huge amount of impact on his internal organs, and the energy lightning that penetrated into his body was constantly destroying his internal organs. Even with a strong self-recovery, such an injury would take about a week. Hawkeye also came to General Ross in some embarrassment, and Phil Coulson also rushed over. The three looked at Faiz, who was trembling with the destroyer, with a trace of horror in their eyes. Faiz has held on for a long time, which is a terrible record. General Ross in particular felt this the most. The pressure from the destroyer was too great. But Lewis seemed to be able to do a job with ease, but unfortunately, even the attack couldn't break through the destroyer's defense. General Ross coughed heavily. "Get ready to tell everyone to evacuate." General Ross gave the order. "What?" Phil Coulson and Hawkeye looked at General Ross at the same time. Don't understand? I said, tell everyone to evacuate, Lewis is no match for this metal monster. General Ross gave a rare explanation. But Lewis is now fighting against the destroyer. Phil Coulson was only half-sentenced before being interrupted by General Ross. Lewis' armor can't do any damage to the destroyer. Long-term combat is not good for Lewis. If we don't leave, it will be too late. This is an order, Phil Coulson agent. General Ross said seriously. Yes. Phil Coulson obeyed the order. Hawkeye will also work with Phil Coulson to begin the evacuation of the S.H.I.E.L.D team stationed here. The battle on the field became more and more intense at this moment. Fuzzies pulls away from the counterforce and destroyer. A huge amount of hammer was pulled out from the void, and the sky and the earth changed color for a moment, and the wind and clouds roared. The storm gathers among the clouds in the sky. The magical inscription on the storm hammer shines brightly. Hawkeye, this is. Phil Coulson, this is. General Ross, this is. A celestial exotic in New Mexico? This is the only thought in the minds of the three of them at the moment. It's really no wonder the three of them thought too much. Stormhammer and Mjolnir look so much alike. The aesthetic style of the dwarf family seems to be like this, and the hammers they make are exactly the same. The three of them felt like they had swallowed a fly in their hearts. They searched here for so many days, and the hammer fell into Louis' hands? Louis betrayed S.H.I.E.L.D. This is the common thought of the three people. But now that Louis is fighting the destroyer, even if they have any doubts, they have to stay after the battle. Phil Coulson turned on the fight recorder and began showing director Nick Fury the fight in sync. If Louis denies it afterwards, then this is the best evidence. Fury was walking up and down the office, very upset inside. He was already annoyed by the failure to invite Tony to join the Avengers several times. As a result, he is still being blackmailed by Louis now, and Fury feels that he has never been so angry since he was S.H.I.E.L.D. director for so many years. Beep. At the moment, the real-time battle video from Phil Coulson appeared on the screen. What's the matter with you? Fury saw Phil Coulson, Hawkeye, and General Ross. General Ross doesn't seem to be doing very well. Fury, we are temporarily out of combat. Louis is fighting that monster, but there are some things you must see. General Ross said in a deep voice. The camera of the frame pans over to the fight between Fuzzies and the destroyer. The storm is coming. The blue-gray wind surrounded the hammer of the storm, and Louis used all his strength to smash it on the destroyer. This blow hit the destroyer's body with a strong breath. Dun! The impact sound is almost beyond the frequency fluctuations that the human ear can receive. The destroyer's body was like a missile, and was thrown backwards by the hammer. Fury had seen photos of Mjolnir, and now he was in a trance when he saw Stormhammer. This matter, after the battle is over, I will ask him personally. Chapter 77 You pissed me off, please subscribe. Fury was also stunned by the scene of the storm. Such power simply does not belong to humans. And in the same way, the destroyer, who endured the damage of this blow but still got up and continued to attack, looked like a god of war. Mommy fuck. How come there are so many strange things appearing lately? Louis felt the powerful power contained in the storm hammer, and it really was a good weapon. The hardness of the Ulu metal is simply daunting. There was a depression in the destroyer's chest, which was smashed out by the hammer of the storm. Sure enough, Thor took Mjolnir and smashed the destroyer for a reason. However, this destroyer is much stronger than in the movie. Huge amounts of storm hammer condensed its own shadow in the sky, and the storm was flying like a surrounding air current. The combat level of the destroyer has also been increased. The energy lightning is almost like a real thunder, colliding with the condensed hammer shadow of the storm hammer. Between lightning and thunder, 05 is the collision of energy. It is the impact of divine power. Thor felt the huge explosion from outside in the room. But now, the collision of the two divine powers made Thor vaguely feel the recovery of the divine power in his body. Will it be the god of Asgard? Thor is not very clear, but the collision of the two divine powers shows that things will not be that simple. Boom! 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 The collision of two forces suppressed everyone's heart. Phil Coulson's body was the first to be unable to bear the pressure. He grabbed his heart and fell to the ground in pain. You send Agent Phil Coulson back, and I'll take a look here. Relying on his powerful constitution, General Ross didn't feel uncomfortable under such a suppressed breath. Hawkeye nodded and left with Phil Coulson first. Even without their command, the residents of the town and the staff of S.H.I.E.L.D. fled to the edge of the town. They clashed because S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel prevented the townspeople from leaving. Hawkeye brought Phil Coulson to the edge of the town and shouted loudly, "Everyone, evacuate!" The entire town was emptied in an instant. Only Louis, Destroyer, General Ross, and Langdon remained. Boom boom boom! Bang bang bang! The sound of impact echoed in the interrogation room. Is there anyone? Is there anyone alive? Thor cried out. Oh sorry, almost forgot. There is also a prince of Asgard in the town, Thor. The fighting outside is still going on, but all the people here have fled. You are lonely, pitiful, and helpless, and you who have lost your divine power can only be powerless and furious here. God knows when the aftermath of the battle will reach here. Phase has entered the accelerated form, and the state of Silver Black brings more speed and more powerful power. But the destroyer's consequentially elevated combat rating was a close second. The battle has entered a fierce stage, and Louis feels his heart is tightening. In the accelerated state, even if Louis' constitution has been improved again, there is no way to use it for too long, and the constitution does not allow it. But Louis could hold on a little longer. General Ross and Fury, who was watching the real-time battle video, felt a dryness in their mouths. The fighting power displayed by Louis is outrageous. Where is the ceiling of the Avengers Alliance? This is the ceiling of the Earth. Among the people Fury knows, there is only one who possesses such fighting power, Captain Marvel. But Captain Marvel isn't even on Earth right now. Director Nick Fury held the communicator left by Captain Marvel, and he really didn't want to use it if it wasn't a critical moment of survival. Louis swung the hammer of the storm and knocked the destroyer into the air again. At the moment, the destroyer had many large and small marks on his body. Dented and broken. Although it has self-recovery ability, it obviously takes a long time. It's just that although Louis pressed the destroyer to fight, he couldn't destroy the destroyer's body. Louis is now 100% sure, Odin, the old thing, cast a magic spell on the destroyer, and when he met his own son Thor, his strength dropped by 99%. Otherwise, it is difficult to understand how Thor killed the destroyer. Langdon also looked terrified. The power of the destroyer has long been known to most people, but now they can see it with their own eyes. Even without Odin's control, the power of the destroyer is still terrifyingly powerful. Looking at Louis, who was struggling first, Langdon finally made up his mind, regardless of his identity being exposed. Mr. Louis, detonate the hammer of the storm! Langdon shouted loudly. Louis stared blankly, never expecting Langdon to say such a thing to himself. This storm hammer is the pinnacle weapon created by Langdon, and now he is willing to detonate it. Both General Ross and Fury saw Langdon standing on the balcony shouting. At the same time, he was lost in thought. Langdon's appearance was too strange, he was very short, and Red's beard almost dragged on the ground. Red's skin is no different from the transformed Red King. Louis would actually recognize this creature that looks like a dwarf in Legendary. Both Fury and General Ross felt that the fog surrounding Louis was getting thicker and thicker. I could still see Louis at first, but now I can only see a shadow. Louis looked at the destroyer, who wasn't tired at all, with a hint of ferocity in his eyes. You pissed me off. I'm rarely so angry. You're the first. The angrier Louis became, the calmer he became, his voice was cold and bitingly cold. Obviously the voice was not loud, but everyone heard Lewis's whisper clearly. Whether it was General Ross or Fury, or Thor who was hitting the wall, or even the people in the evacuated large army, they all heard Louis's voice clearly. One word, spread all over the world. Phase, burst form. Turning into a mobile phone and inserting it into the blaster accessory, Louis pressed a number of 555. Phase's powerful power burst out in conjunction with the blood energy, the blood color dyed Phase red, and the energy blood tube also turned into a black form. The hammer of the storm, which was originally heavy, became just right in his hand. Louis threw a few hammer flowers, relaxed and freehand. But the onlookers got goosebumps. Even Langton couldn't do it so easily. Louis waved the hammer of the storm, and the space barrier opened directly above the destroyer. But the destroyer had been prepared for a long time, and the energy lightning turned into a pillar, impacting on Louis, who fell from the sky, trying to blast Louis into scum. However, the hammer of the storm cooperated with Louis's power to become even stronger, confronting the attack of the destroyer abruptly and suppressing it forcefully. The energy lightning column was forcibly suppressed, and the huge hammer of the storm hammer aimed at the destroyer's head. Slam hard. Chapter 78 Burst the 12th Crimson Company, Kick the Destroyer. Seeking subscription. Boom. The shockwave generated by the explosion spreads in mid-air. Clear away all air currents around you. The sky formed a momentary vacuum state. Countless airflows retracted and entered in an instant, forming a shape like a mushroom cloud. Phase still maintains the burst form, like a mass of bloody flame descending from the sky. The speed of the fall is getting faster and faster, and the heat generated by the friction of the airflow is rising. Like burning, on fire. Did Louis win? General Ross trembled. The shocking confrontation just now made General Ross feel fear. Not yet. Fury watched the scene of the decisive battle motionless. The traces of the battle remained in the sky for a long time. It would be great if Louis was a member of the Avengers Alliance. However, this can only be if. Fury knew that, judging from Louis' attitude towards S.H.I.E.L.D., it was impossible for Louis to join the Avengers Alliance, which was closely related to SHIELD. In the sky, the destroyer fell free, like a bird with its wings broken. But Phase fell from the sky, quickly catching up to the falling destroyer. The destroyer now looks like a mass of tattered steel, and the original appearance can barely be seen. Such a group of scrap iron looks non-aggressive. But SIUFO didn't get rid of the sense of threat in Louis' heart. Sure enough, the moment Louis caught up, the bright yellow pupils of the destroyer burst out suddenly. Huge amounts of energy rays washed over Phase's body. The high-strength energy hedging directly impacted Louis to the top of the cloud. The hammer of the storm stood in front of Phase, and because it clashed with the energy, the heat generated, even through Phase's armor, Louis could feel Doe's hand. Really haunted. General Ross felt his scalp go numb. After seeing the counterattack of the destroyer, he wanted to escape from here. The destroyer who fell on the ground stood up steadily. What are you doing? Fury snapped, seeing the camera change. Don't run away, waiting to die? Under such an attack, Louis will definitely die, that is a monster. General Ross turned off the battle camera. He has to get ready to escape now. If he doesn't run, it will be too late. Hey, Ross! Fury yelled, but Ross had already turned off the camera. Boom! Fury slammed the table hard, knowing he couldn't sleep with Ross. Ross' status is no lower than his own. His background in the military gave him an appeal no less than his own. Fury looked at the communicator in his hand, but finally didn't press it. In any case, it is not yet a critical moment of survival. Since Louis can fight this metal creature to that extent, then S.H.I.E.L.D. will try its best to kill him. This is Fury's idea. And in a small town in New Mexico, Lewis was still in shock, and was almost killed by the destroyer, but the storm hammer was still the best. The hardness of Ulu metal is outrageous. Fuddies fell from the sky again, and this time, Louis would not be careless. The destroyer felt threatened from the sky, and the energy rays struck again. Humph! Lewis snorted coldly. The hammer of the storm in his hand aimed at the destroyer and smashed it, and he let go directly, using all his strength. The whirling hammer of the storm sublimated to the extreme, erupting with all its strength. The energy light of the destroyer looks a bit vulnerable at this moment. General Ross, who was halfway running, also stopped, looking at Fuddies who was unharmed. Suddenly, 10,000 grass mud horses galloped past in his mind. He suspects that Lewis cheated, and there is evidence. Under such an attack, still not dead? General Ross stared blankly at the ensuing battle, but he was also prepared to run away at any time. The hammer of the storm shattered the energy rays and directly came to the top of the destroyer. It had been crushed by Lewis' previous attack. Ding! The sound of metal colliding was only for a moment. Langton saluted in the direction of Storm Hammer, his voice trembling. The hammer of the storm exploded in an instant, and the Ulu metal flew around, directly cutting open the destroyer's body. This kind of power is too powerful. This is a self-destruct at the level of an artifact. The mushroom cloud produced by the explosion almost enveloped the entire town, and the airflow stirred and rose. People who fled can only watch the town they have lived in for many years disappear in an instant. General Ross entered into a transformed state, resisting the impact of the air current. Thor's body was mortally threatened, but the spell Odin left inside Thor was triggered. In an instant, the divine power returned, and even Thor's battle armor jumped out of his body, covering his whole body. Only Langton watched the final splendor of the storm hammer with a fascinated expression, and only firmness remained in his eyes. Tread! Tread! Fuddies landed on the ground, staring coldly at the ground in the middle of the explosion. A half-crippled destroyer walked towards Lewis with heavy steps. General Ross is about to pass out, and everyone is going to fail. It's not dead yet? The destroyer's body was already in tatters, revealing the bright yellow energy core inside, growing inside like crystals. Mr. Louis, smash the core of the destroyer! Cried Langton loudly. The destroyer walked towards Lewis step by step, and it wanted to execute the program to destroy Lewis. Lewis sneered and moved his limbs. Exceed charge! The mechanical sound sounded. The dense bursting crimson electric drills fixed the destroyer firmly, and there was no room for resistance. Lewis used the space gem to block the space around the destroyer. This time, there was no escape from it. I want you to die! Lewis said violently. In this space, the body is the master and the domain. Fuddies passed through every explosive crimson electric drill, and the rotation speed almost penetrated the space prison. Each explosive crimson drill targets the energy core within the destroyer. From the appearance to the end of the bursting crimson electric drill, it took only 3 seconds. But in these 3 seconds, Louis has completed countless, attacks. Pat! Fuddies, who returned to his normal state, fell to one knee on the ground. Behind him was the destroyer who forbids and cannot do anything. Crimson 12. The world seemed to stand still at this moment. But then... boom! 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 A series of explosions sounded, and the explosive crimson electric drill rotated and penetrated the body of the destroyer, bringing about endless explosions. Finally, a huge amounts of boom sounded. The sign in the center reflects most of the sky, and anyone who escapes can see this sign. The symbol of invincibility. Countless people are cheering. Although they don't know what happened, they all feel that they have won. That monster was wiped out. General Ross was stunned, so he won? Langston almost wept with joy, finally winning. Thor, meow meow. What's the situation? I just came out, can anyone tell me the situation? Chapter 79 Revenge, for subscription. Boom! The destroyer's body finally fell to the ground, stirring up a cloud of scorched dust. Louis finally heaved a sigh of relief. If he couldn't kill the destroyer, then he would be killed. Odin, the old bastard, is really partial to Thor. No wonder Loki is vying for the throne. To be honest, Loki, who didn't kill his father, did everything he could. Louis touched the transformed state and lay down on the ground. In the sky, there is no cloud in the sky, and the energy hedging blows away all the clouds. General Ross looked at the unsuspecting Louis, feeling a bit murderous. Eliminating such a monster, Louis is absolutely exhausted. If at this time, kill the road by yourself. The idea was growing wildly in General Ross's mind, and the temptation was too great. If he could get Louis' armor, General Ross felt that he could have this kind of fighting power. General Ross has already figured out how to get close to Louis, but someone is faster than him. Mr. Lewis, are you all right? Langton ran to Louis' side, and his heart almost jumped out of the battle just now. This is the battle with the Destroyer 090, Louis actually won, but it looks a bit embarrassed. Landon, I'm fine, just a little bit out of strength. Louis said with a smile. It was a pity that General Ross was going to do something, but immediately took it back after Langton came out. Pity. Otherwise, this General Ross killed logically. Now, both Hawkeye and Phil Coulson are back. Langton helped Louis up, and Louis pretended to be exhausted, and said apologetically, Langton, I will definitely pay you back for your storm hammer. Langton smiled innocently and said, No, it's an honor for my storm hammer to cooperate with killing the destroyer. Moreover, I also discovered the inadequacy of storm hammer, it will never surpass Mjolnir, destroying is a new beginning. Now Langton couldn't wait to gather the remains of the destroyer and build armor. Thor looked at Langton carefully for a while, and asked with some uncertainty, Are you Master Langton of Wardheim? Are you? Thor? Odin's son. Langton was more surprised than Thor. Thor doesn't look like a prince right now, although the armor, does. Why are you here? The two asked at the same time. I was expelled. Again the same answer. It is also Tianya who is a fallen person. Langton suddenly understood where Louis Mjolnir came from, but Langton had no intention of revealing it. After all, he and Thor didn't know each other well. Phil Coulson and Hawkeye walked to General Ross, looking at Louis with strange eyes. The fighting power displayed by Louis is outrageous. Thor and Langton didn't have much to say. Thor looked at S.H.I.E.L.D. coldly. He still had revenge. Master Langton, let me settle my personal grievances first. When Thor saw Phil Coulson and General Ross, his inner anger was like a volcano, reaching its peak. He was originally an explosive temper, and now he just wants to vent his temper. Prick! Prick! The power of thunder surrounded Thor's body, and the fine electric current did not hurt him at all. For Thor, the comparison before and after is simply like two different people. It was as if it wasn't him who was whipped by the electric shock before. Sensing Thor's malicious intentions, General Ross looked at Thor coldly. He has not recovered from his injuries and doesn't want to fight anymore. After Thor put on the armor, they didn't regard Thor as the lunatic who claimed to be the prince for a while. Who are you? We don't seem to have offended you. General Ross said in a deep voice. No offense. Thor snorted coldly. Those shames, Thor will never forget them in his life, have he not offended them? With every step of Thor, thunder is under his feet, and after he walks, he leaves dark footprints. I Thor. Heir of Asgard. The future king of Asgard. Asgardians of the Nine Realms, the Enforcers. Thunder gathers in Thor's hands, and with every word he speaks, thunder becomes stronger. The thunder slammed down on the place where General Ross and the others were standing. Boom! In an instant, it was a huge pothole. Fortunately, the three escaped in time. Hearing these familiar words, both Phil Coulson and General Ross felt their hearts jump. "You're the one who..." Phil Coulson didn't have time to finish his sentence, and immediately fell silent. "Is this all true? Is that madman really a god? If you were a god, you would have said it earlier." It's over, it's over. S.H.I.E.L.D. This time in New Mexico, got nothing and offended a god? Crazy. Thor took up the second half of Phil Coulson's sentence. The expression is indifferent. The tone is chilling. "If you all think I'm a lunatic, then I'll be a lunatic," Thor said angrily. The pale golden hair danced wantonly, and Louis suddenly understood what it means to be furious. It looks like Thor, with disheveled hair and wanton waving. It's a bit crazy, but it's full of momentum. General Ross couldn't explain it when he saw it. There was already hatred between the two parties. Roar! General Ross roared, completing the transformation. Even if the injury has not recovered, General Ross cannot show weakness in front of Thor. This is obviously not going to get any better. Moreover, the pressure brought by Gan-Er is far inferior to that of Louis and Destroyer. General Ross was also full of anger. "If you can't beat two cheaters, I can't beat you as a god?" The Red King rushed towards Thor with a roar, and Thor, who had no weapons, could only meet him with his bare hands. Punch after punch. Loud. Fist to the flesh. Lethal move. Stare. The two people crossed their legs and passed each other's life. Hiss. The few onlookers gasped. The two sides in the battle retreated rapidly, without the slightest expression. Both of them don't have to worry about whether they will be kicked out of their recovery abilities, but it hurts just looking at them. The Red King jumped up, flew more than 10 meters high, and fell suddenly, trying to smash Thor into pieces. Louis had seen this trick before, and his first reaction was that it was useless. Sure enough, Thor's eyes turned blue-purple, and thunder was brewing in it. He instantly saw through the Red King's movements and landing point, and only retreated a few steps to the side to avoid the Red King's attack. With a thunderous kick, he directly kicked the Red King's waist. Carla! There was a crisp sound of bones breaking, and the Red King rolled on the ground a few times before getting up. The previous energy lightning raged, and the injuries in his body did not recover. Thor's kick can be said to be just right. Chapter 80 He is not my son, subscribe. Thor's thunder power further stimulated the raging energy lightning that the Red King kicked. The same source of divine power. The Destroyer is originally the product of the highest wisdom of Asgard, in which Odin's divine power is integrated. General Ross was forced out of his transformation state. Thor took one step at a time, thunder was raging all over his body. Snapped. A thunderbolt hit Phil Coulson. Crackling. Phil Coulson's body twitched, foaming at the mouth. Phil Coulson's body is still common even after training. Under such a high-intensity electric current, he was electrocuted and unconscious. Isn't that going to work? Thor sneered, and thunder struck again. But this time, he was intercepted by an arrow in mid-air. Boom! The thunder collided with the arrow, resulting in an explosion. You want to stop me too? Thor said coldly. You didn't do anything to me, and I won't do anything to you, get out of the way. Thor held the thunderbolt in his hand, and fixed his eyes on Hawkeye. As long as he dared to do something to him, Thor would not be polite. Hawkeye was not afraid at all, and held the alloy crossbow in his hand, aiming at Thor. Call out! Boom! Arrows and thunder collided again, and Hawkeye was the last strike every time, intercepting thunder. But the number of bows and arrows on his back is also gradually decreasing. Call out! Hawkeye subconsciously wanted to get the arrow, but it was used up, and Thor's thunder easily hit Hawkeye. Snapped! Hawkeye flew upside down, the thunder ran wild. Hawkeye got the same treatment as Phil Coulson. Ace. The trio was wiped out. Phil Coulson, who barely regained some sanity, watched Thor approaching him in horror, and shouted loudly, "Mr. Lewis, you are also a member of SHIELD." Phil Coulson put all his hopes on Louis. Phil Coulson's words made Thor stop and looked at Lewis. "Are you going to stop me?" Thor's tone was not friendly. "No, you go ahead, I'm just a passing Kamen Rider." Lewis made a gesture of invitation. "As long as these three people die here, who knows what Doom-Men has done?" "No, it can't be, Mr. Louis." Phil Coulson yelled for help. Synthesis formula of Cabernet alloy. Phil Coulson tried to make a deal with Louis, who had mentioned Cabernet alloy when he was negotiating terms with director Nick Fury. Phil Coulson wanted that as a deal. Lewis smiled, he really didn't have a great demand for the Cabernet alloy. Langton can find out the synthesis formula from the alloy, so Lewis is not interested in the condition of Phil Coulson at all. Tut tisk tisk, but offending a god for carbon? Detective Phil Coulson, do you think it's appropriate? Louis asked rhetorically. Thor came to Phil Coulson's side, the thunder in his hand turned into the appearance of Mjolnir, and Thor smashed down hard. A star map of the universe, S.H.I.E.L.D. has a star map of the universe. Phil Coulson yelled loudly. Clang! The sound of metal crashing made Phil Coulson's ears tingle. He looked up in horror as the Kaiza armor single-handedly stopped Thor's thunder hammer. Although it is completely different from Fai's, Phil Coulson knew at a glance that it was definitely Lewis. Seeing that his attack was stopped, Thor angrily wanted to use his strength to suppress Lewis. However, Lewis crushed the hammer condensed by thunder with one hand, and punched Thor in the abdomen. Puff! Thor was beaten and flew upside down, spinning and rolling, covered in dust. Lewis didn't look at Thor, who was flying upside down, at all. He looked at Phil Coulson and asked coldly, "Is the star map you said true?" "The star map is the map needed to travel in the universe. After all, the universe is so big, no one knows when it will go wrong. However, if you want to say that there is a star map in S.H.I.E.L.D., Lewis feels that this is still believable. After all, so many spacecraft that crashed on Earth were found. Phil Coulson was held on the neck by Kaiza's beam gun blade. If what Phil Coulson said made Lewis dissatisfied, Lewis could do it at any time. "It's true, it was left by Carlo," Phil Coulson said, immediately facing the death threat. Lewis withdrew the beam gun blade and nodded. "If it's Carlo, then it's understandable, the cosmic star map left by Captain Marvel is highly feasible. I hope you won't break your promise, otherwise you will know my temper." Lewis spoke in a very gentle tone and made people feel chilling. Behind him, Thor got up from the ground and glared at Lewis. "You are so weak, how dare you stop me?" Thor roared. "Zero, ask for flowers." As a god, he has been provoked more than once. Now that he has regained his divine power, even though Lewis is wearing a strange armor, he is not afraid at all. Lewis looked at Thor coldly. Thor, who had just recovered his divine power and had been tortured for so many days, was actually very weak. So weak that even the injured Red King could fight him for dozens of rounds. For a proud guy like Thor, Lewis will not hold back. "In the absence of social beatings, then I will reluctantly beat this future Thor for the sake of society." Kaiza Blagun. As the mechanical sound sounded, the beam gun blade shot out a dense network of light and locked Thor's body. The principle is the same as that of the Crimson electric drill, which is space locking. "What have you done to me?" Thor raged, but he was completely immobile now. Lewis didn't respond. The light of the beam gun blade was hot, and he pressed slightly behind him. Kaiza's speed reached the extreme in an instant, passing through the constructed network energy layer. Light Jean cuts out countless swords, lights, and swords in an instant. Caesar, Carpenter. Extremely sharp and extremely destructive. The beam gun blade retracted the lightsaber, and Thor's body suffered delayed damage in an instant. Boom! God's constitution made Thor just fainted, but still breathing. It was just the way Lewis killed Thor in one move, which once again shocked everyone present. Lewis removed his armor, walked up to Phil Coulson, and said condescendingly, "Don't forget my reward." Phil Coulson nodded. He didn't have the slightest temper in front of such a domineering Lewis. It is lucky to be able to survive. Lewis turned to leave, but changed his face. "Langton, let's go back, I'll buy you a drink." Lewis's appearance of a playboy changed, which surprised everyone. But Langton still prefers when Lewis is like this, he will not feel the pressure. When Lewis fought before, he was so crazy and belligerent that Langton once felt that his following was a mistake. This Langton looked at the fainted Thor, not knowing what to do. "Never mind him, he's not my son anyway." Lewis had no intention of managing Tortoise at all. End of the chapter. Like and subscribe for more videos like this.